Hello, hi, welcome to the Kirk Linden live stream Game of the Year 2023. That's right, it's the last stream of the year, and I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Cal Cronin. How are you, Cal?
Yeah, what's going on, buddy? Yeah, long time colleagues.
Colleagues, compadres, cohorts.
Yeah, sometimes it's just about putting in a good, honest day's work, punching the old time card, right?
Yeah, sometimes I refer to Cal as, when people are around and Cal's there, I'm like, hey, these are my goons. This is Cal, my lead goon.
This is my fixer.
Yeah, this is going to be a short award ceremony for Lord of the Rings Gollum. So here's how things are going to go tonight. We have a lot of awards and categories that we've kind of made up, some of which Cal knows about and I don't, some of which I know about and Cal doesn't. I played a shit ton of games this year. Cal played actually a good amount of games. Cal played like a normal human amount of games this year, enough to play some of the big heavy hitters, I would say. So a lot of this stuff is going to be things that I've played that Cal hasn't, but we're also going to have fun with that a little bit because we're going to have some guessing games with Cal. There's a bunch of games on my list that he hasn't even heard of. And so we're going to sort of quiz Cal and see what he thinks about some stuff he's never heard of.
There's actually an elaborate contraption above my head, and if I get it wrong, slime pours down.
Yeah,
Kirk, cashes another $1 million check. It's that simple, guys. All we need is Mark Summers in here.
So here's what's going to happen first. I just want to show. This is the list. This is the amount of games I played this year that came out this year. Obviously, there's some games previous, but this is the master list, and it's a list. What do you want? It's a list.
I think I counted 43 or 44 games on there.
Yeah, there you go. So
my tabulations. I did a lot of pre-production.
So these are the games that are going to be eligible for my awards going forward. And I sent this list to Cal ahead of time because Cal's going to play a little game. Cal and I know each other. We've known each other for a long time. Cal's going to do his best using his knowledge of both me and the games of this year to guess what my top 10 games of the year are going to be. Just for fun, no money on the line. I don't think Cal put down his mortgage or any
no pink slips.
No pink slips.
We're not racing for pink slips here. I looked at the list of games Kirk played. There are certainly games on here I have not heard of, and I have no idea what they are. We'll have a little fun with that. But for somebody who I keep in contact fairly regularly, there are about 15 games that I think make this list. So basically, my goal is going to be, I'm going to give my original 10 in a second, and then throughout the conversation, I may adjust that, and then I'll do a final presentation at the end of what I think his top 10 games of the year are. Because we couldn't just talk about the games. We had to make this complicated.
We made it as convoluted as we possibly could have, but in a fun way. So why don't we just go ahead? I'm going to pull up a blank list here, and Cal's going to tell me what his guesses are. My prediction about Cal's prediction is, I think Cal knows me pretty well. I think he's going to use his deduction. I think the top 10 is going to be maybe not in the correct order, but I think he's going to get I'd say 8 of the 10. Let's just start from number 10.
Here's the short list. I am going to put Resident Evil 4 Remake. I think this squeaks in there. I think Kirk fucking loved it. And I think in a weaker year of games, this could have been a top 5 potential contender, but I think there were enough games that he liked equally or more. So I'm starting off 10 with Resident Evil 4 Remake. Number 9, we're going with another remake. I'm doing the Super Mario RPG remake. I think that was a game that Kirk dug up and it entered his brain and he started playing the shit out of it. So I'm thinking that's number 9. Number 8, which is a game I think that came out much earlier in the year, so like recency bias may play into this. I'm putting Metroid Prime. That game seemed sweet. I know he played a lot of it. I think that might... Is that another remaster? So we get the 3 remakes at the end here. Number 7, just because this is I'm going with Pizza Tower. I didn't really play this game. I know it has big reviews. It also has that classic, like a DOS game vibe that I know Kirk is partial to. So I'm going number 7, Pizza Tower. Number 6, I would say Baldur's Gate. I think Baldur's Gate, if it wasn't such an involved game, could be in the top 3 potentially. but neither he or I feel like played enough Baldur's Gate to get it into that top echelon, but I do see it as a top 10 contender. Number 5, I'm going to put Tears of the Kingdom. That was a game. I know Kirk really enjoyed it. We're going to probably discuss that at length later on, but Tears of the Kingdom, I think, is probably a top 5. Gotta be. Top 4, Jedi Survivor. Kirk liked this game enough that he thought about coming out of retirement and still may for a classic KL review, which you guys should all spam emojis in chat if you agree that he should do that. But I know he really liked that game, and I know there's a lot that he has to say on it, but I don't think that he would have had so much to say if he didn't like it. Number 3, I'm going with a personal favorite here, Dave the Diver. That was one of those weird games Kirk told me about. Then I started playing. We had like a chat between us for like 3 weeks, which was basically just Dave the Diver conversation. It's a sweet game. I also played and finished. Number 2, I'm going to put Lies of P. Loved that. We're going to have a long conversation about that game, I'm sure. I think that game is amazing. And then number 1, I'm going to go with Mario Wonder. I'm going to go old school Super Mario Wonder. I think it hits a lot of the points that Kirk likes in his games, and I know that's another one that he put in the hours on to 100%. So that is my pre-game rankings, subject to change. So hopefully throughout this conversation, I may tweak that a little bit, and if you guys have thoughts in chat, feel free to chime in.
I love it. I think your logic was sound. I think you know me pretty well. I think you had a good justification for all of these picks, and so that was fun to listen to. It makes sense. This list makes sense, you know?
Yeah, it's such a strong year for games, honestly. Let's start there. We'll take it day by day.
Sounds good. Okay, yeah. So I think on the spirit of this, Cal played a bunch of games as well. He didn't have the same pool of games that he played from, but he did play enough there. He came up with a top 5, correct, Cal?
I do. I have a top 5 of games I played this year.
So I think I am going to guess your top 5. I'm going to do this off the cuff right now because I didn't do this in advance. So I'm actually going to start with your first pick. I think your game of the year is Lies of P. I think you and I played that. We both enjoyed it. We both finished it. I think there's a period of time where you were extremely hype on it and you were locked in. You know, I think it takes a certain type of game to get locked in. And Lies of P had you locked in for a couple of days there. I think with that, I got to say Lies of P has got to be your number 1. I think number 2, I think you're going to have Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm saying this because Baldur's Gate 3 is really good. And also we had a good time. I think it opened, I think we both plan on playing that, maybe a little bit more spoilers on some other categories. But I think that that's a game that really stood out. And I think that you really dug it. I mean, I dug it as well. No surprise there. I think that your number 3 is going to be Super Mario Wonder. I don't know if you finished that or not, but I know you were playing it a bunch. I know you got like pretty decent progress in it. So you've played enough of it to know whether or not you like it. I feel bad for not putting this earlier because it should be, but Dave the Diver, I think, is on here because that game is sick. I think you were locked into that as well. In fact, right now I'm going to switch Mario Wonder and Dave the Diver. I think this is actually the right move here. I think Dave the Diver is number 3, Super Mario Wonder is number 4. Number 5 is a tough one because there's a couple other games you played. You played the Diablo 4 beta. We've played a bunch of Lethal Company. My 5th pick is going to be Lethal Company. Very recent, but I think we've been having a blast with that so far. And so here's my prediction of Cal's top 5.
All right. Should I reveal or are we doing the end reveals?
I'm going to reveal mine at the end. You can either wait to the end or if you want to reveal it now, we can.
Let's do the conversation first, because I think there's some interesting points to discuss with some of these games.
Yeah, absolutely. So we came up with a couple of categories. There's a few that Cal is going to throw at us randomly throughout the night here. Let's start off with something that Cal mentioned before the stream that resonates with me a little bit is
Minecraft.
Best Minecraft. No. So we're going to do what is the best airplane game / on the go game / game that just is a big time suck. The game of the year makes sense to do a ranked list, but I think with this one we'll just list the games that qualify and then we'll bold one that we pick as our choice.
This is kind of a challenging category, honestly, because I feel like sometimes the best airplane games are like they're tried and true classics. You know, like I don't really play. What's the farming game there? No, it's not Starfield. I'm thinking
Stardew Valley. Starfield Valley.
Stardew Valley's like a game like I never think about playing, and then when I'm like flying somewhere, I'm like. But I do think that's a component to the airplane game category. Is like sometimes it's better to just pick up a classic. The only game I would say that I played on this list that probably falls into that category. I didn't have Dave the Diver mobile, which I did, which I wish I did. Honestly, that
has since come out on Switch, but you played it on PC, correct?
I played it on PC, and then other than that, it's Super Mario Wonder. So that's kind of the only one I can add here. But what about you?
I blasted through Super Mario Wonder at home. But it's definitely a good to-go game. For me, the big one is actually Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4 is kind of like you just mentioned with Stardew Valley. It has like a day-night cycle. It gives you like, I don't know, each day lasts about 10 minutes. And there are some like dungeons or caves that kind of expand that time a little bit. But it has that addictive loop of like you play the game in like 15-minute chunks. And you just have there's always something you unlock, something you complete at the end of the day that makes you want to just do like one more day, just one more day. And that kind of experience really translates well to the plane because you just like, you know, you can kind of keep chugging along if you want. You can get lost in it. Or if you're just trying to play a chunk in between movies that you're watching, you know, I think that's a pretty good one.
I have some general questions.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of need you to sell me on why Pikmin's even an interesting series. Like I don't understand the Pikmin hype.
Pikmin is kind of unique because it's like a mix between like real-time strategy. There's real-time strategy elements where you're managing your Pikmin that are different colors and they each have their own strength. Yellow Pikmin are resistant to electricity. Red Pikmin are resistant to fire. Blue ones can swim. Rock Pikmin you can throw at glass and break stuff. They all have this kind of purpose and you kind of manage your squad of Pikmin. At the same time, there's a big puzzle platformer element too, because you're controlling with the controller your character. So even though you're managing your troops in a kind of a real-time strategy kind of way, you're also running around with Olimar, who's, you know, your main character. And in this game, you play as whatever your new character is.
It's like a god complex. Like he's like, my Pikmin.
Yeah, I mean,
tomorrow's a work day.
It kind of shares that sort of ethical gray area with Pokemon, where if you really think about it too much, you're like, is this enslavement? So yeah, and then Pikmin get killed. Like when you send them into battle, like not all Pikmin make it. You see their little ghosts go up, they're like, ah! They just, you know, rise into the heavens.
Dead, or do you just, you know?
Some people I know are perfectionists where they don't want to lose any Pikmin. I let them go. You can always grow more Pikmin. They literally grow from the ground. But in this game, that does some fun stuff where they added a pet dog that you get. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. It's something I can't remember. But basically, you get this big fluffy dog, and that increases your movement speed. So you can ride around. You can either send the dog out to do stuff, and the dog is as strong as like potentially as strong as like 100 Pikmin. So you can drag stuff. You're trying to collect stuff from the ground. And anyway, it's really cool because it's both relaxing and tense, where just like there is a ticking clock element, but you have as many days to accomplish the stuff as you need to. So it is kind of relaxing. But then there's just like moments, there's boss fights, there's big puzzles and scary enemies. So it's not all like roses, but it's just a fun game. It's not the type of game that's for everybody. It's you know, you have to be into puzzles and real-time strategy. Not 100% sure it's your jam, Cal. In fact, I'm 100% certain it's not.
Okay.
But I think
puzzle aspect I like, but the real-time strategy is probably
Ochi. That's the name of the dog. Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of like Lemmings Crusher. Yeah. It's like a modern Lemmings to some degree.
Honestly, Lemmings as like a game that I probably started playing when I was too early to understand how to play. And then like Lemmings is a sick game.
Yeah.
I don't know what your take is on
I played it back in the day and it stressed me the hell out. But I was also a little kid the last time I played Lemmings. But
Okay.
I added on Super Mario RPG Remake because I think that's another game. It's like turn-based. So if you want to zone out for a couple seconds, you don't have to concentrate on the game. However, the turn-based RPG nature of the game is great for travel. It's great for just starting and stopping, saving, and it's it's just an old school JRPG. I think those are all pretty good on the road. There's a lot of games on here that would potentially be fun. Like Dave the Diver should be on here, but I didn't actually do this. I didn't actually. It's theoretically a good airplane game, but I haven't done that.
Totally.
I'd say Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom.
Sea of Stars, was that a mobile
Sea
game?
of Stars is a pixel art JRPG that's really good. But I played that on Game Pass, so I actually didn't play that one on the go, but it would be a good to-go game. Tears of the Kingdom is just, I did travel and play with this earlier in the year. That's definitely one you can just get absolutely lost in. So, but this might be the list here. Diablo 4 would, except there's some fundamental design flaw with Diablo 4. One being it's always online, so you can't play it on an airplane. Unless you get some weird hack going with the plane Wi-Fi. But yeah, I feel like this is a good little list here. And my personal pick would be Pikmin 4. What would you say on this list?
Honestly, Dave the Diver, I think that would be a better airplane game to me than Super Mario Wonder. I think Wonder is a somewhat flawed game. So we haven't talked about that at all, but
yeah,
I'm excited to dive into that one.
You're excited to Dave the dive into it?
Yeah,
so we'll bold
Dave.
We'll bold Pikmin 4 and Dave the Diver. Those are the two best airplane games / on the go. Picking two, is that a cop out? Yes. We're gonna move on. Let's do best remake remaster of the year, and let's maybe use this as an opportunity to kind of talk about the differences between these remasters and remakes to their original. I have played at least a tiny bit of all of the original versions of all of these games, with kind of the exception of Super Mario RPG. I've fired it up and played the first 5 minutes like a dozen times, but I've never actually really played or engaged with the game, the original one.
I think I've seen you play Dusk, and Dusk is like a Doom clone, kind of.
Yes, so I put Dusk on here. Dusk was an indie game from 2018 that was one of the sort of, it wasn't the first, but it kind of was the pioneer of the boomer shooter genre on that's kind of seen a huge revival lately of people making games that are retro shooters or first-person shooters that are in this style of something that would have come out in the 90s. Dusk is maybe the pinnacle of that. It's a combination of Quake and Redneck Rampage and Blood, and sort of those three games put together. Dusk is really cool. All three of its episodes are very distinct and has a very low poly look to it. Dusk HD, which actually just came out a few weeks ago, I just put this on this list because it's technically true, but basically they put out a free DLC for it this year, free update, where someone just made like someone who was officially hired, so it wasn't just a random guy, but somebody,
janitor,
yeah, some janitor, some Goodwill Hunting style.
Janitors out there, by the way. Thank you for your service.
But someone went through and remade all of the character models, all of the weapon models, a lot of all the textures, and basically beef them up a little bit so they all look a little better, but they still have like a retro kind of look, but they're like better than before. So it's an interesting one. It barely qualifies because the game is exactly the same, except they just upgraded the character models, textures, and stuff. The fact that it's a free update, though, you don't have to buy it, and it's optional. You can turn it on or off. I mean, what's not to like? It's really cool. I've played through a little bit of it. Definitely wouldn't make like my best remaster or remake of the year, but it's pretty cool what they did to it, considering it's free.
Rise of the Triad. Never heard of this game, and actually, my original thought about it was it sounded like your classic beat 'em up, kind of like Turtles in Time-esque from that era. And then Crusher said one of the first multiplayer games they played. So kind of interested in getting some background on that. I thought Rise of the Triad was something related to beat 'em up, Double Dragon, something like that.
You thought it was like a Double Dragon, like arcade style game. Rise of the Triad. I'm playing the Dusk HD trailer here, but we will actually switch it I'll show Rise of the Triad footage while I talk about it. Rise of the Triad was basically originally supposed to be the sequel to Wolfenstein 3D. So before Doom came out, it was after Wolfenstein came out and before Doom came out. This game was in development. There's a couple people who actually worked on Wolfenstein who are part of this. It's an old school FPS that looks pretty cool. I never really played it because back in the day I was a little too young, and as you can see, it's very intense. I didn't quite get the 3D spatial relationship of it because it's like uses a lot of like engine hacks to even pretend that it's 3D. But basically, it's a really goofy, old school first-person shooter. And this year, Night Dive, who puts out all of the crazy good remasters, put out Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. So finally, you can play it outside of DOSBox. So it was like the first really good way to play like a modern version of it. I bought it this year. I played it. It's cool that you can finally play it on modern systems. It's out on, I think, like consoles and everything too. It's great to have that accessibility, game preservation, but Doom is just so much better in every way. And all the games that came after Doom are so much better in every way that it's hard to kind of go back to this one without some rose tinted glasses. But it's,
Got it.
Yeah, it's cool though. I'm glad it's out. Let me pull up some System Shock stuff because this is one that I think is really worthy of talking about. This game they kept the spirit of the original intact, but they completely redid it in a way that's really, really cool. They basically built the game from the ground up using a new graphics engine. I don't know if they use like Unreal or whatever else, but
here's what I'll say. My experience with System Shock is I feel like it was a game that I'd see at like an Office Depot or something like that growing up. You'd go to like a store to buy poster boards for like, elementary school or like markers. And they always had a weird, like, small selection of PC games you could get.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I remember seeing System Shock as, like, an option, just being, like, way too young to ever play it, and also being like, oh, that looks cool.
Yeah, but, totally. I mean, it is that kind of game. I mean, I never actually played it when I was younger, and I think I wouldn't have really been able to handle it because this is one of the first big first-person shooter immersive sim games. This laid the groundwork for System Shock 2 and BioShock. It also led the groundwork for
BioShock is part of this. This is like a BioShock.
It's like semi-related. BioShock is a little bit more shooter than sim, but this really laid the groundwork for Deus Ex in those games as well, because this is a game that really reacts to the things you do, and you have to pay attention. It doesn't hold your hand. You do have to like read some logs, figure out some puzzles, get through. It doesn't tell you where to go. It's this massive space station. You have access to certain floors. And so it's one of these games that's it's called an immersive sim because you really have to just sort of unplug everything else, turn off your playlists, whatever else, put on your headphones and just dive in. And when you're in for that kind of mood, it's really moody and cool. And it's the new graphics are really neat. These are the original like full motion videos you can see in this thing now. The amount of like the improvement, like this is what it looks like now. This is the remake. But if you see the footage from the original, like the remake it still looks like retro and cool, but looks amazing compared to what the original looked like. And, if you played like a more standard remaster of the original, I don't think it would be as cool or as fun as this. They really made this game like way more playable. The shooting feels good and it looks fucking great. So I think kudos to, this is another Night Dive remake. This is what the original game looked like. And you can just see the difference there. It's just night and day. And they don't.
How many hours would you say you have in the remake?
I put in like 10. I still have a long while to go. I got stuck in a few places that I hit a wall a few times where I didn't really know where to go, but I put in like 10 hours and I definitely don't think I'm done with it. I'll say that. Resident Evil 4 remake. I guess this is the time to talk about it because holy shit. Finally, I understand Resident Evil 4. This is one of my long time, as you would say, either cold take or hot takes, depending on how you want to phrase it.
No, it's a cold take. It's a cold take when you hate a game that everybody else loves.
Resident Evil 4 is the game that everybody loves. And to me, it's like the video game equivalent of Goonies or something where you had to be there, I think, to really appreciate it. Because in my opinion, I didn't play it at the time. I remember I had a friend.
Arguable.
I had a friend at the time
I played it 3 years ago and I loved it.
Totally. I just think that the controls were so awkward. I tried playing it on the Wii. I tried playing it on the PC, and I eventually played most of my time with Resident Evil 4 original on like the version that they have on PS4 because it's clearly designed for a controller. And even though I wanted to use mouse and keyboard in the Wii, it just a little clunky. It was fine. I think I've always liked the art style of the game, no matter what. I felt about the gameplay. I always loved the way it looks and like sort of vibe it put out. I love the art style. I like the weapon models. I like the enemy design. There's always stuff I really respected and appreciated, but that's the game that everyone thinks is perfect. And I never really got it. And I felt weird for not getting it because I just played it. I'm just like, I'm not having fun.
To chime in on that, to me, RE4 was a game that you had played. And then when I was streaming, like heavy streaming, I got into it and I was like, wow, this game rocks. And I remember you picked it up again at that point, and you owned it on 2 or 3 different consoles. Like you were somebody who hated the remake.
I own 3 different copies of it. Yes, I'm a maniac.
And I remember listening to your like justification on why you didn't like the game, and it was that what you're saying, like being annoyed that the control scheme or like the way that the game operates or like whatever the finickiness of it, and the controls are a little weird. It's not, it's a little, the original was a little funky, but I could tell that it annoyed you that you couldn't enjoy playing it because you could see that there was probably a game in there that you would actually like, but like there was just enough headache at the beginning where you're like, I'm not gonna subject myself to this. So it's exciting hearing that you really enjoyed the remake. And I think I can see why, and it's a game that I haven't played yet, but it's on my list of like rainy day, let me dive into something games.
Yeah, I'll say that it was your influence that you kind of were so into it made me try harder to like Resident Evil 4, but you actually got me into Resident Evil 7 as well, and that's kind of, I have to say, the first Resident Evil that I actually clicked with and I actually beat. And Resident Evil 7 was a great time, but I also played a bunch of Resident Evil Village. I played like 80-90% of that and really enjoyed my time with that as well. And Resident Evil 4 Remake, everything in the game, I'm playing footage of it right now, looks incredible. But in my opinion, all of the complaints I had with the original are fixed. Like this is the game. This is the game. I actually played this on PC, so I use mouse and keyboard, which felt fantastic. You can move around, the mobility is better, but they rebalance the game by making the enemies faster. So in the original game, you're super slow and you have like tank controls, but all the enemies are slow too. So I think it's kind of balanced. Tank controls is where it is because you can't move, you cannot move and shoot at the same time. You have to stop, aim with a different button, whatever else. That is not, that's where the tension in the game comes from, and I think that sucks. This new one, they rebalanced it by giving it you're not like running around or anything, but you're much faster. You get free aim, you can move and aim like a modern feeling game, and they just rebalanced it by making the enemies a little bit faster and more intense. So the intensity and tension is still there. Like this game, I was on the edge of my seat and had my heart pounding through so many sequences. Like it was a really, really exciting game. But it really just clicked with me this time. And the remake, I just think it ran super well. It looked great. The controls were really good. It came with some really hilarious skins. I played through the entire game with Ashley dressed as like a punk rock girl, and I was wearing a windbreaker with sunglasses. Like it's silly. And the pace of the game and the way that the items and upgrades all worked just all felt great. And I know a lot of it is intact from the original, but I know a lot of it is also remixed. So I think, Cal, when it's time, when this game goes on sale, when you have the time, whenever it is, I think you're going to love this game, because as a hater of Resident Evil 4, this game made me understand. It made me #believe. I loved the Resident Evil 4 remake. So
I will say this. I did play Resident Evil Village, and I don't know if that was the end of last year. Could have been this year. Who even knows? And I know it's basically the same engine, I would imagine. It's probably just less of the game.
Yeah.
And I thought Resident Evil Village was super, super fun. The other thing I was going to note, I'm notoriously disinterested in like the narrative and like the storyline in a lot of games. Resident Evil 4 has a great fucking story. Like it is, and I feel like it seems like they kept a lot of it in the remake, but like the goofy characters and kind of like the campiness and like it has just enough humor and like self-awareness even in like the original that I think it makes the story fun to pay attention to versus don't care, which is how I feel about like 99% of games.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, it's a simple story. A lot of characters that come in and out, but it's not over talky, and there's not too many cutscenes. It has the right balance, I think, of story and gameplay. Because if you tip the scale too far the other direction where there's too much story, sometimes that bogs down the pace. But I think this one only interrupts you here and there. And there's only big cinematics like kind of between the levels. So for the most part, it's just pure gameplay, and then you hit a cutscene, and then that usually signals you're at the end of the level, or there's one big set piece or something. But yeah, good story.
Shout out to Leon. Yeah, I feel like they did a great job of sort of turning him into like it's almost like the old like Schwarzenegger or like Sly Stallone movies, where he's just kind of this meathead guy who says dumb things, but then also kicks everyone's ass. And yeah, I'm here for that.
It's just fun to play, fun to control. And that was totally missing from the first game, in my opinion. I know I'm wrong and I'm in the minority, but this game fixed everything. It felt great to play. And this is one I plan to revisit. I don't think I'm done with this one.
We haven't talked about Metroid Prime, which would be interesting to get your take on. It's getting down to decision time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that we've gone this whole time without talking about Metroid Prime Remastered, because this is another
come out first of all. Because
this came out in like March, I believe. Okay. This is one where a Nintendo Direct came out and then just said now available. Like it was suddenly like, oh, you can just play it now. So that was cool. I've played Super Metroid a whole lot. I've beaten it. It's one of the few games I've beaten to completion several times, because I don't usually do that kind of shit. But
that game is maybe top like 25 game of all time to me. So
yeah, Super Metroid, really, really, really good. I've tried to play Metroid Prime on GameCube a few times, and I've liked the beginning of it. I've played the first few hours a couple times on the original GameCube, and they did a pretty good job of making controls that worked back then on the GameCube controller, considering this was before the age of the twin stick shooter. So it would use a single joystick, but then you would just lock on with the trigger to enemies and it would just automatically aim at the enemies. And so it worked pretty well on the original, but I just never finished it. But suddenly having this just on the Switch was finally the time for me to actually dive into the game. And the cool thing about the remaster is they redid every asset in the game. This is a huge graphical overhaul. It's now widescreen. They redid every asset, every texture. It looks, for the Nintendo Switch, which obviously is old hardware, this game is maybe the best.
All right, we don't have to be ageist here. It's fine hardware. Okay?
I'm not being ageist. Old. It's a salt and pepper. It's came out in 2017. And it's a mobile. It's basically a high-powered tablet.
Kicking in. Yeah, continue.
I think this is maybe the best-looking game I've played on the Switch, and by that I mean it's a game that looks good and it also runs at a buttery smooth 60 frames a second. And because of that, it just looks and plays great. They modernized the controls, so now you can do twin stick shooting like a modern shooter, which you couldn't before. You still can do the lock on and everything else. But they overhauled everything. They kept the core gameplay intact. And I had a great time with this game. It really translated the 2D experience of Super Metroid into a 3D experience extremely well. And that's something that was good with it back in the day. So this isn't anything new about the remaster. But now that it's modernized controls, overhauled graphics, and it's just accessibility on the Switch, which is a system that I play a lot and I know you play a lot, just having it in the palm of your hand made me be able to just play through it more. I played this all the way to the end. I had a great time. This game fucking rules, and the remaster is sick. I can't recommend it enough.
Would you rather play this or Metroid Dread?
That's a good question, because Metroid Dread is like a modern 2D version of this. I loved Dread quite a bit.
I know you did.
I think I would take this game. I think that there's a couple things about Dread, specifically the bosses that you have to be stealthy around, that while fun, kind of got old. It was like 8 of the same bosses, just with different playgrounds. And that part was a little bit weak. There's no real weakness of Metroid Prime. I think that like it will test your patience, because kind of like System Shock, it does not tell you necessarily where to go. And so there was an insane amount of backtracking I did in this game. Also, there's so many like secrets that I can see you can get to some place, but I don't know how. And a lot of times I didn't even have the proper equipment yet, but I kind of pulled my hair out trying to find all the secrets in this game. And weirdly enough, that's the kind of gameplay I like. I like solving puzzles to find secrets. A lot of really memorable boss fights. Great game, and it's challenging.
Okay.
It's really challenging too.
Is it a Metroid game though? It looks like a Halo clone.
I guess in the sense that there's sci-fi and space corridors, and like looking at it at a glance, it is. But no, this is fucking Metroid. You get the morph ball, you get the power, the space suit, you upgrade your cannon, you get missiles, you get super missiles, you get the bomb, you get the super dash, you get the all of the upgrades that you get in Super Metroid. You get the ice beam, you get the plasma beam, you get the X-ray vision. There's so many cool upgrades, and they all change how you...
You're selling me. You're selling me now talking a little bit. Well, it's just so funny, and the reason why I bring it up is because I feel like we live in the Metroidvania era of, like, everything has this Metroid component.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to get a full sense of, like, this game, obviously, like, the 2D Metroids, and I think Dread looked exactly like the SNES version I played.
Yeah.
But you're saying all that's still present in this.
Yes, and it's the doors that you can't get by unless you have this weapon, and there's there's a shattered glass here, but you can't break it until you get the super bomb. And
I didn't expect to be sold, but you might have. You might have just done
this. Yeah, it's funny that we saved this for last because this game came out of nowhere. I played it for no real reason, and I beat it in like a week. It was like 30 hours. It wasn't super long, but it also was plenty long enough. And it was fantastic.
Put the work in.
Put in the work, son.
All right. Well,
all right. So
now's the time.
All right. So the winner has to be Resident Evil 4 Remake for me, because in this category, we're talking about what the improvement it did to the original. Like Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition, it made it playable, but it didn't really beef up the graphics really. I mean, it did a little bit, but it's essentially just the same game. Resident Evil 4 and Metroid Prime Remastered and System Shock, those are the three standouts to me. And well, we haven't talked about Super Mario RPG. I guess I'll just say a piece on it real quick, which is I think that the art style of the original, it is kind of ugly. Like, I think it was cute looking, but I think one of the reasons I could never get into it is because it was like the pseudo claymation on the Super Nintendo, but it wasn't quite as cool looking as Donkey Kong Country, and it kind of looked a little ugly, and it was turn-based RPG, and that's not what I was looking for with Mario. So I never really played it as a kid. The Super Mario RPG remake, however, they updated the graphics, and I think it's a gorgeous looking game now. Shit just looks really good. And so I played this entire thing as well, and it was basically having it on the Switch, having it look good. Same reasons as Metroid Prime, having a new coat of paint finally motivated me to actually play this thing, and it was super fun and charming and cute and quick.
So you never played the original? Right.
Not more than I played the first 5 minutes several times, but I have not actually really played it. Did you?
No. And I played a little Paper Mario, but I don't think I like.
This is the prequel to Paper Mario. Yeah.
I think as an adult, now that I've played some RPGs, like I might enjoy it more, the original or maybe this one.
I'm going to bold Resident Evil 4. The most impressive thing is taking a game that I was very lukewarm on and didn't like and making me really like it. That's a good ass remake. It's just amazing all around. Resident Evil 4 Remake is fucking sick, and that's my pick for best remake remaster of 2023.
There it is. Lock it in, fellas. Everybody keeping track at home. Well, I do feel like, I mean, if you're gonna remake or remaster a game, the fact that 2 or 3 of the games on here, if there's an amazing game underneath and they can add some new quality of life, polish, whatever it is, aiming, blah 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 blah, to make that game more likable to a larger audience, that's pretty much the fucking purpose, right?
Yeah.
Versus taking an old IP and trying to like put it in a new context, which none of these on here I would say necessarily fall into that category, but
yeah, cool. Absolutely.
Good job.
Sweet.
Good job, team.
By the way, quick shout out. I switched to Scotch. I was drinking wine. We're drinking Scotch.
Go.
Shout out to Marco. This is a beautiful Kirk Linden etched customized Elden Ring whiskey glass that he got me last year. And then there's a Darth Vader ice cube in here. You can kind of see Vader's helmet. He's melting in the Scotch. Anyway, what a concoction I've made for myself here. Shout out to Marco.
You're about to win Nerd of the Year for all those references. This is like a Disney production.
Why don't we do some categories that's going to It's going to we're going to slowly turn up the heat a little bit. That's why I switched to Scotch, because we've been very glowing of games, and this is a celebration of the amazing game year it's been with all these games. We're going to talk some shit at some point, and then we're going to get there.
That is true. When we were talking about doing this, I was like, what about if we do biggest dumpster fire? And he's like, bro, the year's been so good for games. Can we let's just not. Well, let's talk about the shit that's good.
It's been such a good year for games. It would be hard for me to do a bad category, considering like the bad stuff I didn't spend any time on because it's bad and I didn't play it or it didn't look good. So even though I should probably be more open and challenge myself, games are expensive. I'm not going to spend my time and my hard-earned cash on stuff that doesn't look like I will like. And so in the end, that's why people who are professional game reviewers, they can do a much better list of dumpster fires and shit shows, because they have to play all of it, or they at least have to comment on it. And me and you, I bet you didn't spend a lot of time playing bad games this year.
No,
of course not.
No.
Let's go into games I've played a little and want to play more. So we've already hinted at a bunch of this stuff. A bunch of these games are already mentioned, so we don't need to do a full thing about all of these. But I will just say that there's some games that I played and I really liked what I played. And I just, for whatever reason, didn't have time to do them all.
It's not a bad thing necessarily to be a game that like you're excited to dive back into when it makes sense, you know? I want you to explain for all the games on this list, right, why you want to keep playing them. What is it that is so fucking great about it? Like, man, I can't wait to dive back in.
Yeah, let's talk about Pizza Tower first. Pizza Tower is the first one. I played for like 2-3 hours. It's a tribute to the old the art style wise, as you can see, it's a tribute to like Nickelodeon, like Ren and Stimpy, Rocko's Modern Life era animation, which is something I honestly haven't really seen done in games this quite like this. Like this art style, like it looks retro, but there weren't retro games that really looked like this. This is a weird Nickelodeon cartoon game that has its humor and weird shit going on. But gameplay wise, it is a tribute to the Wario Land games, which were the Game Boy games starring Wario, which I only just got into this year out of coincidence. Because I got the Analog Pocket, which I can play more Game Boy Advance games, Game Boy games. So I've been playing the Wario Land games, which I never really played as a kid. And this is really interesting. Pizza Tower, it's a cool ass style, but it's one of these games with it's easy to pick up and difficult to master. There's a lot of moves. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on with the moveset. You can like run up the walls, all this crazy stuff. But the whole game is interesting because you kind of choose your own pace as you go through it. But then when you get halfway through the level, suddenly you pick up an item and there's a ticking clock and you have 3 minutes to escape from the level. And you have to go back from which you came. And suddenly you're trying to go as fast as you can, making critical time jumps, doing all this crazy stuff. And it's intense because if you do not make it back in time, you have to do the entire level all over again. And that happened to me a couple times before I really got the hang of how to control. The person in this YouTube video clearly struggling in this tutorial section. Let's skip ahead in the game. But yeah, so you run through and you kill enemies, and every time you kill an enemy, it adds to your total time. And so there's this other element of picking up clock pieces and killing guys and getting crazy combos. There's a bit of a like, hey, if you kill guys in a rapid combo, your score goes up, and you do get like an S, A, B, F, like you get a grade at the end of each level. And it's really interesting and really cool. The art style's awesome. It's something I haven't quite seen. It looks retro. It looks like something you've probably played before, but the gameplay is honestly kind of doing its own thing. And it's really cool, really funny, really difficult. And it's a game that I played a little bit of, couldn't quite master it, but I'm like, there's a lot more to this game than what I saw. And there was a Donkey video where he got deeper into the game, and I saw some of the later levels in that video, and I'm like, oh my God, it really made me want to pick this game back up. I haven't really yet, but it's one that it's cool. It's a cool retro platformer that's difficult. And, it's just one of those things though, where you probably have to be kind of in rhythm to, next time I get into it, I probably should just finish the whole thing while I have the controls, on my mind. But anyway, I don't know.
It looks like it's got some of that like Meat Boy or like
yes.
Hollow Knight kind of precision.
Yes.
Even though it doesn't look like it should.
Yes.
How much did you want to play more of it?
I want to beat it. It doesn't look like it's that long. I've played like 2 hours. I'm guessing it's like 5 hours or so. My next entry on here is Warhammer 40K bolt gun. First off, we talked about different categories to do. And one of the categories you threw out that I thought was a fun idea, but I just didn't think there were enough entries is, which game are you embarrassed to say that you like? Which I think was a fun idea. Concept. You had some good ideas for categories. Unfortunately, there's only like 2 games on my list that I'm like embarrassed. One of them we already talked about, Lego 2K Drive. That would have been one of them where just like, only certain people I'm going to be like, what game's sick
like
though.
A family event connecting with like a 7-year-old.
Yes.
Yeah, this game's tight. And they're like, yeah, it's tight. It's like,
yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, exactly.
Anyway, but Warhammer itself, like I don't know anything about the Warhammer franchise, but it is what they make the mini figurines.
Yes, it's like figurines that you paint, and it's like for hardcore tabletop people. It's a huge franchise that has tons of different video games. There's real-time strategy games. There's the other one that people play a lot is Vermintide, which is supposedly the Warhammer 40K version of Left 4 Dead. That's like 4-player co-op. There's people like the Gears of War style one they made called Space Marine. This one is the first one that really caught my eye in a way that I'm like, oh shit. First off, I think it's like less than $20, so it's not like a full priced game, but this is a full-fledged pixel art first-person shooter, which, as you can tell, I have an affinity for. This is basically a really beautiful looking retro style game that you can see in this footage here. This is a tribute to the Doom 1 episode 1 map 1. But it plays a lot like Doom Eternal. It plays a lot like, or Doom 2016, where you kind of explore a section of a level and then you get to these arenas. There's these part of each level where there's just huge arenas and enemy encounters, and you just kill them till all the enemies are dead. And then you move on to the next area where it's also like an arena shooter. You run and jump around. You get pistols, shotguns, you get all this sort of stuff. And it's just a cool like boomer shooter that's really fun and high intensity. Like, you get hit a few times, you're dead.
I mean, to me, this feels like another Doom clone.
It is. It's a very much a retro shooter.
And it comes from this Warhammer universe.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you know more about Warhammer?
Absolutely not. I don't know anything about it. I do know.
That sounds like, it was like maybe there's some like lore shit that you pick up, but it doesn't sound like it. No, it's just like a cool ass shooter game.
Blizz is asking, boomer shooter, do you mean this is for my age range? Boomer shooter is unfortunately the nickname that these games got, and I don't think anyone really likes it. It just is what it is, but it's basically the Doom era, Doom, Duke Nukem, retro era, Quake style shooters that older gamers like, and that's why it's called boomer shooters. There's should be a better name for it. They used to be called Doom clones, then they became first-person shooters, and then when that genre became bloated out with all sorts of stuff, now it's boomer shooters is this type of game. And you're dead on, Cal. It is a tribute to Doom. There's a lot of tributes to Doom and Quake in this game. As far as Warhammer lore, the one thing I know about Warhammer is there is a difference between Warhammer and Warhammer 40K. And I think Warhammer 40K is the futuristic 40,000 years into the future version of Warhammer, which is like medieval shit. So Warhammer 40K is like, this is like futuristic shit.
Space Marine.
From my understandings, I don't know shit about Warhammer. I don't know anything else. I didn't learn anything about the lore playing this game. I just shot at stuff and blood spewed up in a satisfying way. And it's a cool game. One more question. Yeah.
What does this game do better than most when it comes to Doom type clone games?
I think it's a aesthetic package. I think that like the game, like it's satisfying to shoot the weapons. It's satisfying to, it's like game feel kind of thing. It's like the movement feels good. The weapons feel good to shoot. It feels good to shoot enemies. The levels are thoughtfully designed. I would say it's not my favorite boomer shooter of the year. Even like it didn't quite hook me, which is why I want to play more at some point. I don't know how much more I will play, but I got a few hours and I got my fill. It's a really good, really polished version of one of these types of games. But as far as what it does that's different and special, I don't know. I don't know if it does anything that different or special. It's an arena shooter. It kind of combines a few different eras. It's just like, it feels good to play and it's rock solid. And I think one of the reasons I didn't play more of it is because while
You
it's
didn't want to
fun,
tell your family about
I didn't know what to tell my family. No, it's just one of these things where like any other game that's a little more interesting came along and it probably took my attention away. But it was fun for a few hours. But
Okay.
at the same time, I want to say it is good. The stuff I played is enjoyable.
I mean, hey, so do the Metacritic users out there. So you're on the same page.
Yeah. So Warhammer 40K. And now I'm gonna just blast through a couple of these that we've already talked about. System Shock Remake. I played about 8 to 10 hours of the System Shock Remake, and I am not even close to beating it. I want to play more of it. And it's something I have picked up every few weeks. It's one of these things where I put it down for a while, but then I pick it back up and get right back into it. It's one that I've played mostly on my own. I streamed it once maybe, and it's fun to stream, but I kind of it's a good, like when I'm in the right mood, fire up System Shock Remake. I definitely plan on playing more of that. Here's one for you. Slayers X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance. Is this something you know what it is?
All I know is it sounds like our old game show, like one of the fake names for a video game that we used to do. Because Slayer's X Terminal Aftermath Vengeance of the Slayer.
There's 2 colons in there. Yeah. You're not wrong. What do you think this game is? So genre-wise, vibe-wise, anything?
Honestly, at this point, I'm gonna say boomer shooter. Only because I don't know what else this could possibly.
Ding, ding, ding. It's a boomer shooter. You fucking nailed it, dude. It's another one. Now, this
I had
one...
a feeling it had to be.
Slayers X, Terminal Aftermath, Vengeance of the Slayer. Is kind of a fake game. It's kind of like there's a meta narrative to it. There's 2 layers of meta narrative to it that make it really different. Did you ever play the game Hypnospace Outlaw?
No, but is that a game that like takes place on your like your screen?
Yes. So you're kind of like,
I never played it.
It's like the GeoCities era of the internet. It's like an entire fake internet.
I played like that,
and you're like a moderator, and you're a content moderator. And if there's people, you get reports that this guy in this teen forums is harassing this other person, and you have to go ban them or to decide what the best
ban him or the
and so I played a little bit of Hypnospace Outlaw, enough because it was on Game Pass. I don't want to spend too long explaining this, but basically there is this super edgelordy kid in the forums in Hypnospace Outlaw that is this guy named I want to say his name is it Zane? I think his name is Zane. And he's this like blonde kid who listens to nu metal and like awful shit. And he has this
Sid from Toy Story.
It's Sid from Toy Story, and he's an edgelord, and he has this blog. I forget what it's called, but it's like Cool or Not Cool, and it's like he says what's cool and not cool. The concept of this game is so insane. It's basically it's a spin-off of Hypnospace Outlaw, where this edgelord that is this random guy online, he apparently when he was a teenager made a Duke Nukem style game that apparently he lost for 20 years, and then he found as like an adult, and he's like, I'm going to re-release this game, Slayers X. So it's supposed to be a game that was made and came out in the 90s that he didn't find until 2023. So this is what the actual gameplay looks like. It's like classic boomer shooter stuff that looks like Duke Nukem. But you know how Duke Nukem, when you play it, like Duke Nukem says a lot of stuff. There's like a lot of one-liners. Like your character says stuff, and it's like you break into your house and it's like, sorry, mom. And like, and there's like, unlike you see how he spells psycho, and there's all these awful, terrible full motion movies. And this game is on Game Pass. So I played it for free I streamed it a little bit, and it is fucking comedy first. It is really funny.
It was made by like an 11-year-old.
Yes. This game, it's like, what if you played a game that was made by a like 13-year-old metalhead from the 90s? And it is so stupid and so funny that it's like it's worth downloading on Game Pass and just playing. And I laughed a bunch in the like 2 hours that I played. And I want to play more because I think there's more stuff to uncover. But as a game, it's just boomer shooter, Duke Nukem ripoff, Redneck Rampage style game that is pretty good, but like it's mostly a game you play for the stupid humor. The soundtrack is incredible because it's this awful 90s ripoff alt rock stuff that is just so bad.
I feel like we should be getting like 9 Inch Nails.
Look at this. But if you're psycho, shove a turd up your bunghole. It's just like all the messages are just like, honestly, Cal, I think you would find this humor to be really fucking funny.
All right.
So Cal, I typed in the rest of the answers here. Like I said, we're not going to go crazy with all of them, but next on the list is BattleBit Remastered. And this is one that I know you have played too. And I didn't put on your top 5 because I don't think we played enough of it. I played more of it than you. What did you think of BattleBit Remastered?
I liked it. I think that's like where I would land. Like, I think BattleBit Remastered was a game that I thought was kind of fun as like a multiplayer experience. Obviously, I think for us at our age, like, you get an hour in an evening to like, yeah, what are you up to? Oh, let's game for an hour. Like, it was like a fun experience. I think that the size of the battles, I never played Battlefield or like any of the games I think that it was kind of trying to recreate. And I guess for me, it's like the Modern Warfare style game where you're leveling up your weapons. There's like this whole thing that you can kind of like, you can have shit rounds, but like you're achieving something while you do it. Works for me. BattleBit Remastered, I feel like for me was like, it was fun playing with you. It was fun as like a multiplayer experience, but I wasn't really all that compelled beyond that. And I don't know if there was a whole lot more beyond the few hours we played for me there.
I agree with a lot of what you said, and I think that this is definitely one of those multiplayer kind of games where I think the reward is just getting better and getting kills. Like, we weren't getting kills or really being that productive in our time playing this game. It's a hardcore game. It looks
pretty serious. It's like you're mapped with like 50, 100 people. How many people were?
Yeah,
like,
huge battles. So basically, the story of this game is very fun, and it's basically that our old friends, EA, Electronic Arts, are the owners of the Battlefield franchise. And basically, Battlefield was a type of game. I played a bunch of it in middle school. Battlefield 1942 was the original World War II one. I played with some of our middle school chums at the time, and I thought that game was a blast. It was one of the first like huge player count like big scale battles with tanks and vehicles. Like, before that, we've been playing Counter-Strike, we've been playing like Half-Life, there was some Call of Duty had already existed. Battlefield was the game that kind of was just like, what if we made a huge level where there's a lot of infantry, a lot of real players, but there's also big tanks, and just people just get wiped out in huge bunches, and it's just a big war zone. And yeah, Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield 2 and Battlefield 3 delivered on those promises. And it's a fun ass game that EA has then gone and, just like a lot of, people, you could say the same about Call of Duty. It's just a game that turned into something where we got to put out a new one every year, every other year. And it just started just diminishing returns every new game, to the point where the people who really liked those old Battlefield games had no game left to play. Like, the EA had kind of fumbled it.
Battlefield 5 was good.
Yeah, Battlefield 5, but that was like, Battlefield 5 was like 5 years ago.
Totally, but I just don't know if that was like, was it good for its story? Because I remember, I think Gluck, shout out to our boy Gluckali CS, I think he gifted me that at one point, and I played a handful of the like solo missions, and they were cool. I don't think I ever played like the multiplayer experience. The multiplayer
is the experience. Like, the original Battlefield games didn't even have single player. Like,
that's what you're saying.
Yes. So
about the multiplayer only.
Yes. And like, I played the single player, but the single player is just the multiplayer mode with bots. It's not like there's a campaign or anything. The later
Battlefield or for this game?
For Battlefield.
Got it.
BattleBit Remastered is basically like, it's not a remaster. The remaster is a tongue-in-cheek joke, because it looks like it has like very basic graphics, as you can see from this footage. People look blocky, like it's like in Minecraft or some shit. There's low poly, low textures. It runs on most computers. But it's bringing it's like a back to basics Battlefield game that just does everything that the original Battlefield 1942 games, Battlefield 2, did so well. And it just brought that back, and it's a game with it's like, I don't know, $15 or something. Its price is accessible. There's a lot of people playing it. There's a passionate community behind it. The gameplay is tight. It is hardcore, as Cal and I mentioned. I think I played for like 4 hours, and I got like 6 kills in that time. Like, it's hardcore. There's a healing element. There's a class element. You're like a medic. There's a lot of management to it. It is a hardcore game, but the thing, we're going to get into this when we get into Lethal Company a little bit, but the thing that this game and Lethal Company did that is different than Battlefield. This is a pretty pure Battlefield type experience, but the thing that made this game special, in my opinion, is what it does with the voice chat and the proximity chat. This is a game like Lethal Company where it tells you right at the beginning, hey, this game is better if you turn your mic on and just have an open mic and talk to people in this game, because there's a proximity chat. You can hear people talk around you, so you can squad up with randos on your team and talk, but then also enemies can hear you talk too. So when you're approaching an enemy line, people are like, quiet, like, let's settle, like, let's go quiet down, or whatever else. People shouting or talking can be a dead giveaway. It's also hilarious because if you kill someone, it leaves their mic on for 5 or 10 seconds. So you can hear the person go, damn it, shit, or like whatever. Like, then you have enough time to get in a good taunt, like suck my balls or whatever. And then you like run away. So there's a lot of that. And despite that, it's the community is really good. And like, they really emphasize how tight they are about banning people who are abusive or awful or toxic. And so even though there's shit talk and there's everything else, I found it to be a very positive community, people helping out. And the proximity chat added this whole layer to it, which is, I think, one of the main draws of the game, of just this interesting multiplayer experience that's not like anything else. Like when you're in a crazy battle, you can hear people talk and hear them saying like, we need a medic over here, like get over here. Like it's the stuff that like presenters at big AAA conferences will have a fake version of, like people communicating and say, this is what our game, The Division, is going to be like this. You communicate like that. And then they never deliver on that. And people in those games don't actually talk like that. This is a game where people are fucking really communicating with each other, and it's cool as hell. It's also something that's so hardcore.
I don't think I experienced that.
Yeah, I played it solo more than you. You played it with me. We
could have been because you and I played late, like one night, and
yeah, I think that's
really about that.
When I played it myself, that's definitely what it was about. And all of that being said, this game is pretty fucking hardcore, and I want to play it more. This is one I want to play more in like theory. And if you ever want to play it, or if someone else wants to play it, this is one. If any other bros I know want to play this game, I'm fucking down. But I do think, like you said, it is, even though the proximity chat and all that stuff I just said is really cool, in the end, this is the kind of game I want to play with a squad of friends.
I do kind of wonder, like, to me, I think all the stuff you're explaining is really fascinating. And we will talk about Lethal Company, and the proximity chat there is really interesting. And I just wonder about, I think games like BattleBit for me are there's just too much shit going on. It's a little too fast. And I'm not saying that I think like a PUBG is necessarily the speed you want to go with something like this, but to your point, like if there's this cool opportunity with proximity chat to maybe slow things down a little bit, to create a little bit more of a, I don't know, for me anyway, like might be, and maybe that's just map design and also smaller non 200 people mega battles, which it sounds like is kind of what
well, you're broken up into smaller squads. So even though there's a lot of people on your team in general, like you're with a squad of like 7 or 8 people, and they're highlighted in green, and they're the ones you're supposed to kind of stick with your little mini squad, if you will. And so if you had some friends, that's where you'd be like, let's hop on the same squad and we can be us 4.
I think you and I just went rogue when we played that one night.
We didn't have a lot of sound strategy.
That's good context for like where this game shines, because otherwise I would say, yeah, it's an interesting, like, massive multiplayer shooter, but the fact that you bring some of that up, it makes me think about it. Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to trying it again.
I just love what they're doing. I love that they came up with a popular shooter and said fuck you to EA and made their own Battlefield. They literally like made their own, and I think that that's so cool. And that's why I say I want to play more in theory. I don't know if I will, but I like the game and I like what it's doing a lot.
Remnant 2. You and I played some Remnant from the Ashes 1.
Yeah.
Really liked it, actually. It's kind of a cool, I don't even really remember. It felt Soulsy.
Yeah, it is. It's a Dark Souls with guns. And I have to admit, I only played like an hour of this, and it's on Game Pass. And this is one where if you downloaded it on Game Pass and wanted to play with me, I think we would have a fun time. I think this is a game that's as fun as the group you go in it with. I think that it's very talky. I remember the first one being a little talky, but I did the entire talk to everyone in the town setup before you go out, and there's a fuck ton of that. And it's not bad per se, but I just think sometimes a game needs to let you just get into the action. Like maybe pace out in which don't do the thing where you have to fucking talk to every single person before you do something. Why don't you meet one person and then you get some gameplay? You come back, you meet the second person, do some gameplay, come back, like spread that shit out. Like the most of what I played was like talking to people, but then when I actually got into the gameplay, the levels were interesting at first, felt very soulsy, felt just like the first one, pretty hardcore.
Bosses in the first one were cool, like a fun little challenge.
It's cool at the same time. It feels there's a weird generic feeling to the whole thing that it's hard to shake. I don't know. It's Dark Souls with guns, and it's pretty cool. It's multiplayer. It's on Game Pass, so I didn't pay for it. I played like an hour. If someone wants to play Remnant 2, I'd love to see more of it. Right. It seems cool. If you download it, I'm down to play, but that's what this list is for. I don't have much to say on it now. Very talky, very slow start, but the actual gameplay did feel cool.
Bomb Rush Cyberpunk.
Yeah, so I actually have some footage of this, I believe. Let's get to some footage here. So this is footage I actually just captured the other day.
It's like Jet Force Gemini or
Jet Set Radio. Yeah. So it's basically,
I did play for the Dreamcast like a little bit.
I actually never played any Jet Set Radio game. So this one doesn't have that nostalgic thing for me. However, this is a love letter to the PS2 era of gaming. And it's supposed to be, it's a lot of the devs, I think, who worked on Jet Set Radio, but this is basically, we don't have the rights to the Jet Set Radio IP, but we're going to make a Jet Set Radio game and just call it Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. So this essentially is a Jet Set Radio game. I've never played them before. It looks like a PS2 game, but like better, as you can see from the graphics. It's a really cool art style. The game runs super well, really well on the Steam Deck, by the way. A great Steam Deck game. But it's, you and I are both big Tony Hawk people. And this game is one of these things where it took me a minute to kind of figure out the controls. But once I did, this game absolutely does that thing that all the extreme sports games do well, where you just get into that flow state and you just grind on shit.
There is a skateboarder.
Yeah, so you have different things. You do bikes, inline skating, skateboard. You switch between all that. You switch between characters, and there's just cool level designs, cool aesthetic. You can grind on the ceilings. You also spray paint and tag stuff. There's this awesome kind of free-flowing skate around, get a feel for the level, and spray paint your mark, and then just go around, and then you learn the level and some of the good spots, and then you do the competitive stuff. And at that point, you've gotten the hang of where the good combos are and how to do that. And I think the game is really fucking cool. I've only played like 3-4 hours of it, and this is definitely one I plan on playing a lot more. But this one came out like right before Star Wars Jedi Survivor and Lies of P, and it just got lost in the mix. But this game is fucking sick. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, this is interesting. I'm not like that intrigued by it, but I also feel like when you actually load this up and you're sort of exploring it on your own, if the fluidity's there, and
yeah, the game feel is amazing.
Games,
yeah, it's something I want to explore more. I haven't played enough of to give a full review or anything like that, but it's something I want to do more of. But anyway,
let's jump Starfield. I don't want to talk about Starfield yet, but
it's a game that I haven't played enough. I just will say in this category, it's a game that I played maybe 20 hours of, which is a lot. But for a game with the scope of Starfield, I don't think I've played, like, I haven't gotten that far in it. And so that's why it's on this list.
Thronefall. What is Thronefall?
I'll just be quick. It's a puzzle real-time strategy indie game that has a cool art style that I played for one session and thought it was pretty fun, and then just haven't gone back to. It's cool. It's a cool little indie game little strategy puzzle game. It's a little tower defense like. I don't know if you're into that kind of stuff, but
sweet. I like tower defense.
So it's a little it's closer to like the Bloons TD kind of thing.
Dude, I love those games.
Oh, okay. Then if you do, then check out Thronefall. It's in early access as well.
It's when you get into like Civ 5 territory that I lose interest.
Enemies come in waves. You upgrade your towers as they come in, but you also have a guy that you control. But you do build tower defense stuff as well. So it's a little bit of everything. In every round, you upgrade your shit. It's very classic tower defense kind of stuff.
Steam reviews are overwhelmingly positive, so that's tight. Not that matters that much, but this does seem actually pretty sweet. I am a big balloons guy.
Yeah, Balloons is cool,
way
but
back to,
almost
like,
like
the
too
Flash
basic.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I like Balloons as well. It's a good way to kill time. And honestly, I think we talked about that you can do multiplayer. We should try that sometime.
Iron Fury Aftershock DLC. So I played Iron Fury and I thought that game was sweet. And I think I reached a point that was just like I might have save scummed, like maybe I need to rewind a little bit.
Mhm.
How was the DLC?
This is why it's on the list. I literally fired it up to make sure it worked, and it does. And it looks like more high quality Ion Fury, which is a great game, made on the Duke 3D build engine. There's a vehicle. They added a motorcycle in this one, so I know a good chunk of it you're on a motorcycle. So it's like your classic expansion pack DLC, but I think it's essentially more of the same high quality retro shooter stuff that you got from Ion Fury. That's what it looks like to me. I haven't played enough of it to judge, but it's a game I played a little bit and I want to play more.
And I'll argue that I don't think I ever closed the book fully on Iron Fury.
I never did. I never beat it.
I really liked what I played.
I never beat it, but I probably played like 15 hours, 20 hours of Ion Fury. I never beat it. It's very hard. It's very difficult.
So let's talk about Armored Core 6.
Mhm.
Because that had a lot of positive reception when it came out. What's your POV on that?
Armored Core 6, it's from Software, so obviously it's the Dark Souls, Elden Ring pedigree. But this is on their long-running series of mech shooters. So this is basically more. Someone compared it more to Ace Combat, which is the Jet Fighter series, which I've played Ace Combat 7 and enjoyed. And I agree. It's not a Souls game. If you fire this up, this is not Dark Souls. It's made by FromSoft, but it is not anything like it. It's a fast-paced mech shooter where you run around on like jetpacks and like your giant robot with like skates, and you slide around and you hop around, you hover. Let me just be clear. I've played 37 minutes of this game. So,
Okay.
So that's why it's on this list, because
That's good context.
I can't pass full judgment on it because I've played this game for 37 minutes at the end of a stream. It was a stream I did a few weeks ago. I played Dark Souls for 2 hours, and then I said, let's switch it up and play Armored Core. It was late at night. I played it for 37 minutes. And so the first thing it does is you teaches you the basics of combat. You fly through. It's a piece of cake. I'm getting and learning it really fast. I'm like, oh, this is a fun. And it's kind of like Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. It's a throwback to the PS2 era of game feel. Fast, fluid, just kind of arcadey thing. And then FromSoft does their thing where they throw an insanely difficult boss at you right away. That first boss is so mean. It is so brutal. It really expects a lot of you right away. And the difference is in Demon Souls and Bloodborne and some of these other games where they throw you into the fire right away, you're supposed to lose. You're supposed to learn, you build up, you learn more, and you come back and you fight the monster, or you move on and fight difficult stuff. Dark Souls 3, a little different because you have to beat Gundyr. In my opinion, Gundyr is how you learn how to play that game on the very basic level, right? You have to get good enough to beat Gundyr to continue the game. This game does the same thing, where you have to be good enough to beat this boss. You cannot fail. You have to beat it. And there's a checkpoint right before the boss. There's no boss run up. So when I attempted this boss like 6 or 7 times, and so that's not even that many times. And Cal's like rolling his eyes inside because it's like 6 or 7 times. Like, did you even play it?
You gotta add a 0, dog.
So I just wasn't in the right mood, I don't think. But it is very hard, and there's no boss run up. You can just restart it. But I was struggling mightily. I thought I got it, and I just kept dying. I tried different things. I switched between mouse and keyboard and controller. Wasn't sure which one is best, but my hands started to cramp up on mouse and keyboard because there's just too much going on. So I think the controller is more comfortable. Anyway, I struggled. I couldn't get by the tutorial boss, and I only played 37 minutes. I'm like, you know what? People like this game. It's cool. I don't think it's for me. I liked Ace Combat, but I also didn't get too far in that either. This is hardcore. It's like both casual and old school and also extremely hardcore at the same time. But I do want to play more because I did not get a fair shake. It was late at night, and I think it's one of these things where once you get by it, I mean, the cool thing about this game is customizing your loadout, customizing your weapons, all that shit. I didn't get that far. And so I haven't gotten to the part of the game that people really like. And so that's why I can't pass full judgment on it.
I don't know much about Armored Core 6. Like, I don't really know how the game works, but it does feel like part of the charm of the mech game era was sort of a continuation of the Doom type strafe and shoot combat wheel that obviously you love, right?
Yes.
So I think that's what's interesting to me about Armored Core Skip. You know, obviously 30 minutes into any sort of game is like not really enough to.
It's more nuanced than the Doom stuff for sure, because there's a lot more. You have to juggle resources a lot more, like your jet fuel and your. Like you have to be hovering, like you're hovering in the air. But your jet fuel is also the same as your forward boosters, and like you have a machine gun and missiles, but those take off. Those are on cooldowns as well, and you really have to be juggling all of that stuff. So while you're right, it is a fast pace. You do strafe around a bit. You have to dodge missiles, and there's a bit of that shooter action in there. But on top of that, there's a bunch of mech sim stuff in there as well. And that's where the Ace Combat jet fighter stuff comes in. A lot of resource management. It's definitely more complicated than any of the boomer shooters I talked about prior.
Fair enough.
So
that's good clarity, because I was like, isn't this just a mech strafing and shooting?
It's hardcore, Armored Core.
Maybe I'll hate it. And then finally is Starfield. Because here's the only reason why I want to bring all this up, and I don't want to get negative because we weren't going to do that.
We have a negative category next, by the way. So,
but I do want to say that there are games that you played a little bit and want to play more, and there's the reasons why you haven't played more, right? Like what was the one you were talking about earlier, Bomb Rush? It was like, well, these AAA games came out that were a little bit more exciting. Starfield is obviously like a dynamic game, AAA game. Has had lukewarm response for various reasons. That might depend on what people expected versus what they got. You played 20 hours of it. That's significant. And you want to play more. Why do you want to play more Starfield?
There's a certain gameplay loop that is old school. A lot of people say it's dated, and they're not wrong. It's when you're in Fallout or Fallout 3, or when you're in Skyrim or Oblivion, and it's going into a new section, a new dungeon, a new cave, a new, in this case, planet. And there's something addicting about just like slowly, methodically looking through every bin, finding some random valuables, finding some dangerous encounters, switching weapons, upgrading your weapons, creeping around and exploring, clearing out a place, and then teleporting to the end, getting your loot, cashing in. There's a certain addictiveness to that kind of gameplay, and Bethesda does that kind of stuff pretty well. And that's kind of what I wanted at the time I was playing it. Full disclosure, I played this game for free on Game Pass. However, I had COVID for the first time, and I was stuck at home, and this game had come out. People were talking about it, and I just wanted to play this game, and I paid the $30 extra to play this game 3 days early. So I played it for free. I played the base game. I didn't
actually know that.
I wasn't
teeing you up for that.
I played the base game for free, but I wanted to play this game enough where I paid the $30 to play it 3 days early. It made sense at the time because I suddenly had a lot of time on my hands. Absolutely stupid thing to do, and don't do that. Don't do that. Just wait 3 days and play the game for free. That's what you should do. I didn't get any bonuses for paying the bonus I got was playing the game early. I didn't get any gear or anything else. I just got to play it early. So it's stupid, and I shouldn't have done it. Should have played Fallout New Vegas in the meantime. So that was dumb. Really don't pay extra to play games early, kids. Just don't do it.
Well, it sounds like we're going to talk a little bit more about Starfield.
We are going to talk more about it. I will say it scratched a certain itch, and I will say it's the best looking Bethesda game by a mile. I think some of the weapon skins in it look really good. Even I think there's some really good looking cool stuff. I like space in general. There's some good stuff to like in this game. And I don't like, I want to play it a little, I kind of want to play it a little more.
Hey, I think that's a fair take on the game. And I played 2 hours of Starfield. I don't know, maybe I was poisoned by the fact that it had such weird discourse online. And also I just don't think I really cared at a certain point, and it's just a big long game that I just didn't want to get into. However, we do have to choose a winner for this category.
For me, it's actually pretty easy. Well, not that easy. Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is a clear thing, but I don't think anything's more clear than me just finishing the System Shock remake. I'm bolding the System Shock remake. Okay. It is so good, and it's probably the one I've played the most out of any game on this list, but I still feel like I've only played like a quarter of the game, and I need to finish it out. System Shock Remake and Bomb Rush Cyberpunk are my 2 picks for games I want to play the most some more. So here's our next category, Cal, and this one's going to be much shorter. Games that I've played a little bit of and do not want to play more. So this is the flip side of that coin.
This is my most exciting category because when we talked about doing this, I was like, oh, I started coming up with ideas for different categories, and it was all kind of negative. And I think the truth of the matter is Kirk and I both had the state of the games industry is just kind of negative. Like, it's fun to shit on bad stuff. It's fun to shit on shit you're not interested in. But it seemed like that would have been the whole show. So as much as we aren't going to do that for the rest of it, I am kind of excited to talk about it now.
I'm going to start with the least exciting one on this list.
Because it's fucking fun.
Yeah, it's fun to talk shit. So Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. Real quick, we already talked about it a little bit earlier. I'm a fan of the people who made this game. I'm a fan of the people who made the Ludicrous Edition. I love everyone involved in this release. It's not a fun game. It's just not. It's just a game that I played 2 hours of. I think I got all I need out of that. It was like I don't know, it was like $10 for the remaster. I don't know what it was, but I got my money's worth, and it's cool that this game was preserved in history. Not fun.
Do you think the people making it, when they were like 2/3 of close to done,
making the remake or the original?
No, the remake. Like, do you think they got to a point where they're like, yeah, we're remaking this game, or were they like, this shit's tight, let's rock?
Well, I think there is this game. I'm
not gonna call it a money grab because I don't think it was, but also I just can imagine that if you remake a game at a certain point, you're like, oh, are we making kind of a shitty game?
It's not a money grab because I don't know how many people even know about this game. But it's this is a case that's similar to Doom 64. If I could be wrong in this, so I will just put that ahead of time that I don't know this for certain, but I think this is a situation where there is a small but dedicated fan base of this game who have been working on making a version of it independently, and I think those people got hired by Night Dive. So Doom 64 got a fully fledged remake remaster by this guy who did the mod himself, and then he got hired by Night Dive to make the official Doom 64 re-release, and they used a lot of the progress that he made on his fan project, and they wrote him a big check and said, you did great work, dude. Why don't you make this official? Let's make this official. From my understanding, there's a similar situation with Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. I think there was some fans who like reverse engineered it into a really cool playable state, better than DOSBox, and the people at Night Dive were like, why don't we just pay this guy to do this for real? And I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, I'm pretty sure that's the case with this game. So basically, this was a paid completion of a fan project. Running things on DOSBox is pretty mixed results. So it's hard to go back to that era. This one lets you play mouse and keyboard, modern stuff, modern graphics resolutions, modern sound cards, all that stuff. For accessibility reasons, it's great. It's just the game itself fundamentally is outdated by Doom and everything else. I want to refill my whiskey really quick. I'll be right back. We need to get boozed up for this.
Yeah, we're getting boozed up. We should have just called this Kirk's naughty list.
Next one is Atomic Heart.
Okay, good.
What do you think this game is?
I just thought it had the most bland name, and you never said anything about it. And in my head, I'm like, this sounds fucking stupid. So I bailed on it. And the truth of the matter is I say that through the context of Neon White, which also arguably bad name, amazing game. That rollerblading game, fighting game you got me onto a couple years ago had a similarly boring name, I feel like. What was the one where you're like a rollerblader, but it's like rollerball, you shoot each other?
Oh, Rollerdrome.
Rollerdrome.
Yeah, that was last year, yeah.
Bottom line was Atomic Heart and the fact you never talked about it. I don't even think that they gave it I don't even think Metacritic gave a shit.
Oh, there's a Metacritic score for this game. Absolutely. It was a foreign developed game. I think either Ukrainian or Russian game.
Metacritic did review it.
Yeah, it was a big release. It was like in January or whatever. But the reason I played this game is because of the wonderful Game Pass. So I played it for the price of On the House. I will say
shit all over it. It might be fine.
I will say I don't think the game is bad. I actually think the graphics are interesting. The setting is interesting. It's kind of BioShock Infinite This game is basically a Russian BioShock Infinite with maybe a little bit more immersive sim, a little bit more System Shock in there.
What do you mean by immersive sim? Just so I have an
immersive sim is where you can interact with a lot of things, and things you interact with can affect the results of the gameplay in a way like, you know, you can turn off this air vent and that might affect what happens in the room in front of you. Or you could, you know, just it can be simple things like that, but it can also be more complex systems of whatever. This game has a little survival crafting element in it as well. I actually think the graphics are really cool and the setting was cool. It takes place in this utopia, retro utopia where this is going to be a Sound of Lies of P-esque, but there's like, I think dolls and robots that are basically the workforce. But what do you know? Something's going on and they're being reprogrammed and they're causing havoc, and this utopia is being destroyed by these machines. It's a cool setting, and it's a lot of setup, and I played through the whole intro sequence, and it seems like for me it's one of these games that it's probably pretty cool, but it seems like a big, ambitious, long game, and I pick and choose those very carefully because those are a lot of hours in there. So it looked cool, but it just wasn't quite my thing. It didn't quite click with me. It was fine.
I shat all over that game, and then all the screenshots do look kind of dope.
It's cool. It's on Game Pass. You should check it out. I mean, like I think
the screenshots make the game look pretty tight.
It's pretty cool.
And I loved BioShock Infinite back in 2015.
Yeah, it's like hardcore version. It's a hardcore Russian version of BioShock Infinite. Game Pass, like, you know, what? Check it out. It's not a bad game. It's just not for me, I don't think.
All right, good to know. Not on the want to play more, but I thought those are good reasons. Continue.
Next up, Wolong, Fallen Dynasty. Now this one is another beautiful Game Pass situation where it was on Game Pass. I heard it was a new Souls-like, Neo-like game that was coming out. Only it was like a Chinese. It took place in China. I did it for a stream. I actually did it on the KL live stream at one point. I played about 2 hours of it.
When did you?
Yeah, maybe January, February, while ago.
Okay, so this is an old ass game.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to look up the release date. Maybe March. I don't know. It was a while ago.
All the things you're saying are great, but you never once mentioned Wolong.
I streamed it once.
It never came up. It tells me enough.
Yeah, I played a little bit of Neo. I played a couple hours of Neo. And I respected it and enjoyed it, I think, more than I thought. But it was significantly more difficult than like a lot of the Souls games stuff. And it had enough complicated stuff with like your blade stances and stuff that I just didn't understand, where I could tell I was not good at the game. Wolong is very similar to Neo in my experience. I don't think it's graphically as cool as Neo. Neo has a striking art style and font work that I think is cool. Wolong doesn't really have that as well, but it definitely had the Souls-like area. There was the bonfire equivalence. There's a resetting. I got to the first boss, and it was like a 3-phase, like super difficult. The combat, it just didn't feel good. It's like a Souls game that doesn't have that kick-ass game feel, the player movement and the weighty combat. It just was off. It had a lot of the pieces there. I don't think it was as good as Neo, and I don't think Neo is as good as the Souls games. So it just was kind of like, I played on 2 hours on Game Pass. I thought it was okay. And I'm like, nah, man. It's not it.
So what you're saying is you said so long?
So long. So long, Wolong. That clap appeared right over your face. That's really funny.
Okay, great.
I only have 2 more on this list. Like I said, I'm mostly positive, but you're going to like the next 2.
Okay, all right.
You may recall this from a different list, but this next one is Starfield.
Oh, shit.
So this was on my games that I wanted to play more of. I also don't want to play more. Like, you know, all the stuff I said about it.
Hold on.
All of the stuff I said good about it with that Bethesda loop that like, like sometimes it just scratches that itch, and exploring all that stuff. That's the good stuff, and it's not even that good. It's weird that the thing I attached to the most is the way the game looks is really good. It's a really damn good looking game, and the weapon skins are great, and there's some really cool visual elements of it. I think that they royally screwed this game up by having the travel system the way they did. I think the way that Todd Howard has talked about his dreams of Starfield for fucking like 30 years. He's been talking about this. This has been in the talks at Bethesda since the company formed. Like Starfield has been timeout.
Can I call a timeout on that? Is that true?
Yes. Yes.
Is that just conjecture online because everybody doesn't like this game?
Watch
really been talking about
watch the fall. Do you ever watch those no clip documentaries?
Yeah.
There's one about the history of Bethesda Game Studios. And I highly recommend watching that. First off, it's fascinating. It goes back how they started off making Terminator games and went into the Elder Scrolls series and everything else. One of the earliest visions was they had Starfield pitched 20 plus years ago. Like this game has been in talks for a long time. And the game is not bad, but for something that has been talked about and so ambitious for so long, and it comes out and it's this kind of like antiquated in its overall game design. No Man's Sky was a game that was captured everyone's imaginations in that trailer and then horribly disappointed when it came out, but has done this thing where it over the years
5 years ago, by the way, that was like 4 or 5 years ago.
That was like 2016. Yeah. So, and since then,
I don't even know what year it is.
They revived that game. They put in the work. They added the stuff they needed to add. And that game has a dedicated fan base that still plays to this day. No Man's Sky has saved face to the point where they finally announced another game at the Game Awards or whatever the fuck it was like a few weeks ago. They actually announced a new game that's coming out, and they're finally out of the rubble of No Man's Sky. Anyway, all I'm saying is even No Man's Sky in its bad form, the draw of it was flying from planet to planet in your spaceship. And that was like the cool that's the part that captured everyone's imaginations. So you have this open world game Starfield, and it's about flying from planet to planet, exploring these worlds. I don't have the same complaint that everyone has about, oh, some of these planets are barren or whatever. That's fine. That's sci-fi. Most planets are barren. Like, I actually don't care about that. What I do care about is there's this clunky fucking fast travel system in Star Chart to just get around to these fucking places that like, so you have these abandoned moons and desolate worlds that don't have much in it. It wouldn't bother me if I got to find these places on my own through traveling through space and setting a course and whatever else. Instead, you're clicking on a star map and watching a loading screen and then getting to a planet that has nothing on it. And that's where the problem is. It's not that the planet has nothing on it. It's just that getting there and the exploring and finding it is a loading screen. It's not fun at all. And that is crazy that they don't have, that there's a game called Starfield and you have your spaceship and you can't fucking fly from planet to planet in the spaceship is a fundamental disastrous design flaw.
Obviously, you're not the only person who have talked about the idea of like, hey, the menu system suck and all that. And I didn't even play the game long enough to even get there. I just didn't grasp me. I did feel like my issue with Starfield was just that like I was probably poisoned by the internet. I found out that like choosing which character I got to play didn't feel really apparent right away, which might have been a cool way to start it. Like, hey, if you're athletic, you should be able to jump this thing. And if you're not, you have to blah, blah, blah. Like there should have been something related to picking your class or whatever. But I do think the fact that if this has been the game that people have talked about, and then an indie studio tries to do it, and sort of has their weird version and gets dunked on and then spends 3 or 4 years like building themselves back. And by all accounts, No Man's Sky, people feel good about whatever it was that they ended up getting at the end of the day. To be a AAA studio and pump out a game that to me was just not that interesting and I just moved on. And I'm glad it was free. But for people who were waiting for something for a really long time, yeah, that's dumb. And I do think that like Elden Ring made me like potentially diving back into some of the open world Zelda games because it gives me a different like context on how to play it and maybe makes me more interested in leveling my character up versus just going wherever I'm going. And I feel like Starfield or the earlier Bethesda games, and I've played all of them at this point, there does feel like there's this component of you can go in a direction and maybe hit a wall, or maybe you don't hit a wall. But there isn't a bunch of menuing involved in that. And to make a game that's got this menu system that feels like you're jumping from A to B. I mean, frankly, I'm not a huge fan of the Star Fox franchise. And I played barely any SNES version, but I played a decent amount of N64. And to me, it feels like that. It's like choose planet A or choose planet B. Like, what's your path going to be through to get to the end of Star Fox? I don't know. I just, it's weird that they made this sort of mistake.
You just said, I wasn't that interested and I moved on. That sums up this game. I think because it, like I said, I don't think it's a bad game, but in a year that's this loaded, there's this much high quality games coming out and your game doesn't do anything special. It doesn't do anything to grab you. Why spend the time sinking into Starfield when you could be sinking that time into any other amazing games that came out this year?
Yeah, I didn't even spend the $30.
I know. At least they had Game Pass to mitigate my... I didn't spend $70 on this fucking thing. That could have been a disaster. I'm not the first person to bring this up, but the reason why Skyrim is a game that always pulls me back, and I always revisit it every few years, is because of the emergent gameplay where you pull out the map, you set a destination, you're like, I'm going to walk to this town. And then you walk to that town and something fucking nuts happens to you on the way. You're walking to that town and suddenly there's a dog talking to you in Skyrim. You're like, what? Why is this dog talking to me? And then you follow the dog and he leads you to this cave and you find out that it's a human that's changed shape and is trapped into dog form. And you go on this fucking crazy ass side quest that you don't even, like, the part that you marked on the map where you were walking to this town, you don't even get to the town. You get sidetracked doing all the crazy shit. And the main quest of Skyrim is not the exciting part. It's the crazy, weird shit that happens on the side. It's this random cave that you're not sure how many people have even seen. Am I the only one who found this cave? Whatever else. Starfield, by design, strips out all of that stuff because it's like, hey, click on the map. This is where you're going next. Loading screen. Now you're there. So you don't actually have that in-between travel time to have those emergent gameplay experiences that are the strength of its previous games. Fallout as well. Same thing. You're like, I'm going to walk to what is it, Megaton or whatever that town is called. And then you find some fucking crazy shit along the way. And that's the game. You find a vault full of everyone named Gary. That's like the appeal of the game. And Starfield takes that away. It literally is like, here's this points of interest. Here's the points of interest that you should follow to follow the main quest. And I followed the main quest and I gotta say, not super interesting. Pretty generic characters. They're not bad, but it's just like, whatever. It's a you're the chosen one. We have to find these magic parts in outer space fantasy sci-fi story that just doesn't do much to differentiate. And I don't think the Bethesda has ever done main quests that well because the strength in those games is all the other shit. And this game doesn't have all the other shit. So that's crazy.
To put it in Game of the Year context, and we haven't gotten there yet, but Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that does exactly what you're talking about extremely fucking well. And It is a reminder of what's the point of the hours that we're playing for these games. And we're going to talk about Lethal Company and some of these other games where it's like, maybe this story doesn't matter, but like if the adventure that you're having takes you in a weird direction and you've decided what that direction's going to be, if the answer is you have to go to a loading screen and then click on another thing, I agree. Like, I don't think that's a Starfield problem. I think that's a game design issue that anybody making games like that, stop.
And I don't think it's something that can be fixed. Like, this isn't something that can be patched. Like, I talked about No Man's Sky, how they basically
RDR2.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Blizz, good example. Red Dead 2, another game where the main quest is pretty good, but the fun in that game is the crazy shit that happens when you're going from point A to point B. Cal was asking me about what's the appeal of the open world games. And in my opinion, the best open world games, it's about the journey. It's the stuff that happens to you between going from point A to point B that is super interesting in open world games when they're done well. There's a lot of generic bad open world games out there. If it's not done right, then open world games can be very tedious, very boring, very repetitive. Open world games can be pretty lame and pretty bad and overstuffed with repetitive content. And I think Starfield has some good stuff in there. There's some good, like I said, there's some good stuff going on in there. It looks great. The gunplay is better than they've ever had it feel before, which isn't saying much. The guns in Fallout felt like trash and whatever, but this is a step up from that. There's some good things going on in here, but it's just too little, too late. It's too sterile. There's not a lot of, like, Fallout had like the whole gimmick of being that retro future vibe, the 50s diner, and you're listening.
Aesthetic.
Yeah, you're listening to the radio station, and there's some cool, the cool aesthetic. Skyrim has that fantasy setting. It's a little more typical. Starfield is like fucking ice cold. There's no like style to it except being a sterile space thing. And if you wanted to do a sterile space thing, at least let us explore space. Weird Judge say that if you listen to random NPCs at star bases, you do get to do random non-long quests at faraway planets. There's hidden blades. Yes. So that stuff is still in the game. There's still, I'm not saying there's not side content in the game, because there is. And I actually had some fun side content experience on in Starfield. I got to one of these bases and this lady was like, hey, she pulled me aside like, hey, can you help me out? Like, my husband's in there and I need to talk to him, but I don't have clearance. Can you go in there? And like, there's this little side thing that does happen, but those side moments don't feel as organic. Like I walked this random path and had this thing happen to me. It's more that like this felt like a scripted event that happens every time you land at this space. And so I know there is side content, and that's why it was on both my list of I want to play more and I don't, because I'm like, I recognize there's some good stuff in here, and there is the stuff that Bethesda does well is still in this game. On the other hand, fuck that. I don't have time for this shit. Like, it's not good enough. It's just like, and I can't patch it out. It's a fundamental design flaw about the way you travel. I don't think this can be fixed. I can't believe this is the game they talked about for 20 hours and it's just like a worse Skyrim. Like, you know, like it's crazy.
How many more do you have?
There's one more.
Do the one more.
Okay. And you're going to both love and not love this. My number 5 is Armored Core. The same trick. Armored Core 6. So these are both on both lists, and I know that that's lame. But it's true. I'm conflicted about both of these games because on one hand,
a game you played for 30 minutes versus a game you played for 20 hours.
Yes, they're not the same. They're not the same. That's why I'm saying, like, hey, look, I should play more of it. You cannot say I played enough of this game to give it a full judgment. On the other hand, I don't want to fucking play it again. I just didn't have fun. It's not like this challenge I'm seeking out. Like, I gotta learn this guy's moves.
I was so hoping you said you got it for PS5, because then I could just borrow your PS5 for the weekend and see if I like it.
Hey, you can borrow the Steam. It works great on Steam Deck. You can borrow the Steam Deck. And you can play Armored Core 6.
Because this is a game that I have slight FOMO on, but your lack of interest either to me means that you don't get it, which I don't think is necessarily the case, or maybe
it could be the case. I can't like that. I am fully admitting I am not being fair to this game.
Blizz didn't like it either.
Yeah, Blizz and I had a similar experience. I'm not being fair to this game, and it's one of these things like what if you played Dark Souls 3 and had a bad time fighting Gundyr and never got over Gundyr and then judged it based on that?
I did.
That's what I'm doing right now. So I understand that's what I'm doing.
I spent 3 hours fighting Gundyr on like a live stream when I thought it was a horror game. I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually came back like a couple months later, learned what the game was, and it changed my brain in a good way.
Exactly. I think that the first boss is a hump that you could get over and get to the actual stuff. But I resent the game design in this where in the past, you forgive all the From Software games. Elden Ring, one of my favorite games of all time, came out last year. It starts you off in a boss fight that you really can't win. But do you know what happens? You die, and then you end up at a different place, and you move on with the game. You're supposed to die. You can win that first fight, but then you die anyway. Same with Demon Souls. Same with like Dark Souls to a degree with the Asylum Demon. Like it's a hard boss fight, but then you realize you have to get all your gear and you do the tutorial, and then it gives you the tools to fucking make the Asylum Demon your bitch and lets you continue with the game. By the time you get to the Taurus Demon in Dark Souls, you're like 2 hours in. You've already done a bunch. You've already done the Undead Asylum. You've done the Undead Burg. Like you've gotten through a lot of shit by the time you get to that Taurus Demon. And I don't even think the Taurus Demon is that hard. Armored Core, you play for about 5 minutes and you're at this fucking boss that you have to beat, and it's really fucking hard. So
and you don't start off with like a juiced up guy.
No, well, you might, but like the whole point is there's not enough game before this boss for you to practice, for you to even know how to play the game. Like it throws it.
This is good. This is good insight.
You don't even have time to get good at the game. Like I barely knew how to control the thing, and it's throwing a boss at me that I have to beat. It's not like anyway. So I resent the game design a little bit and not letting you even practice the game. So I'm sure that once you're good enough and once you overcome that first boss, I've heard the game's amazing. I've heard the customizing is awesome. I've heard there's ways you can cheese the rest of the game with the right kind of weapon setups, and if you know what you're doing with your loadout, you can really make the game pretty easy. I've heard so many good things about this game. On the other hand, I have to get over this annoying ass thing and like just hit my head against the wall on this boss and learn how to play against this boss where there's just no other opportunity in the game to learn the actual moves of the game. And I hate that design. I think it sucks.
Okay, well, that's where I step in because I will play this game. I don't know when.
I'd be curious to hear.
I mean, the interesting thing that you bring up is the Dark Souls 3 is my favorite Dark Souls game. Not the best in certain characteristics or whatever, but for me, I love it the most. And yeah, beating the first Gundyr was like a way of reframing my brain about what I was supposed to do in a combat arena with a certain type of boss. And I just wonder how much of that is present in Armored Core 6. And I also can totally understand, like, yeah, I don't know. Do I like mech games? Maybe not. Maybe I like mech games. Like there's probably a component to this, which is like you're playing a mech game that's going to require stamina and this and that and like fucking weapon recharge and all that. And like, yeah, that might not be the type of game that I like to play. So I get it. That's just my 2 cents. But I appreciate the passionate response.
Yeah, I mean, I like Titanfall's. If Titanfall's a mech game, I like mech games.
That's what I'm saying. Like Titanfall is kind of a mech game, but this does.
The concept of a mech is pretty cool. At some point, whether it's this next year or 2 years down the road, at some point, I'm going to fire it up again, and maybe it will click, and maybe I'll say, damn. Kind of like how I was so salty about Dark Souls and so salty about Dark Souls 3 when I first played them, and then eventually turned around, and there's some of my favorite games ever. That could happen with this. That's why I'm not that's why they're on both lists. On one hand, fuck that. I hate the design of that. On the other hand, I know how From works, and I know how magical they are, and I know that people like this game. So I do think that I could have some really crazy revisionist history on this one.
But I think it's a fair review. The Metacritic score was 86. The Metacritic user was 8. So
okay, so it's about the same.
86. Yeah, but the users gave it a slightly less score than the fucking critics, which is interesting. Let me go over to my list real quick. So Mario Wonder, I had number 1. Liza P, I had number 2. Dave the Diver, I still think makes your top 10. Jedi Survivor is a question mark because it does feel like maybe that isn't number 4 as I originally planned. I think Pizza Tower's out. It sounds like a game you like and you want to play more of, but I don't think it's in your top 10. Metroid Prime, Super Mario Remake, I don't think got the review that I was hoping. RE4 staying. Do I get a little insider info?
You hit 9 out of 10 of my top 10.
My original.
This list of the original that you guessed, you got 9 out of 10 of them, not in the correct order. There are a few that are in the right order. You hit 3 of these in the exact spot they're in, which I think is pretty good.
Hell yeah.
And then 3 of them are one-off. 4 of them are one-off from the slot. That so you got the gist of it. But
yeah, let's just run with your
But this is the list where I will say the order does matter. This is where you did. I think
that's why we're all here. This is why we're all here. Game of the year. Continue.
So we've talked about a lot of these games. Let's just start filling them out. And you'll see that I have 15 slots and 3 HM. HM is for honorable mention. So the only things that matters in terms of Cal guessing are the top 10. This is very indulgent, but I played a lot of games.
If I hit 9 out of the top 10, that's damn.
You hit 9 out of the top 10. And I will just tell you, you were right. The one that you missed is Pizza Tower. And it's simply because I didn't play enough of it and it doesn't hold up to some of these others. First honorable mention is RoboCop Rogue City. I never heard of this game. I until it kind of came out, people were hyping up the demo, be like, well, yo, this RoboCop demo is sick. And I was like, what? A RoboCop game? And I played it and it's fucking cool. It's cool as shit. And the story is really interesting. You do a lot. It looks like a game where you just shoot criminal scum as RoboCop, and you do get to do that, and it's excellent. And you get to shoot people's heads off in a bloody explosion that is delightful and fun.
Do you think this is one that I would enjoy?
You would like to play it at the
I didn't mean to interrupt your.
No, you would enjoy it. You would enjoy it if it was on Game Pass. Absolutely. I think there's a lot more non-combat stuff that you would not be into. I love RoboCop. It's my favorite. I think straight up my favorite movie ever.
I love RoboCop to an extreme degree.
I love RoboCop.
It's like I didn't think people liked RoboCop as much as you liked it. And then it's like, well, there's a game for it now,
yes, so. This game lets you role play as RoboCop in a way where you get to make decisions as RoboCop, and you get to decide if you want to give someone a slap on the wrist or give them hard jail time, if you want to let them go or shoot them in the face. You help the other cops with that overcrowded police station. There's some stuff where you would not like those things as much. As a RoboCop fan, it feels like a game that was made by people who love RoboCop, and it felt authentic. The soundtrack is similar to RoboCop. The action is awesome. The graphics is sick for a low budget game. The graphics are really good, but that's also where my big flaw is, and why it didn't make my my top 15 is because, it's crazy that I played this many games. It's so stupid. But I have a 3080. I have this game on PC, and it ran pretty well for most of the time, but I got to like later in the game, and stuff started to get a little crazier, and it started to get really choppy performance wise. And it's an Unreal Engine 5 game. And I just think that even with a 3080, the fact that on like medium settings, I was getting the game to it started to chug later on in the game, kind of was a real drag for me, to the point where it's hard for me to even want to like pick it up anymore, because it's so distracting.
The frames were a robo drop.
Yeah, robo drop. But but that being said, art design, the actual game, unexpected surprise. Highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in RoboCop. Definitely check it out, especially if it's on sale or free. But I did pay for that one.
That was actually a game I earmarked to ask you why. So you gave the explanation.
Yeah. It's really cool. Definitely check it out. System Shock Remake, we've talked a bunch about. I put an honorable mention because even though I played it like 10 hours, I don't think I've played enough of the game to justify it on the list, but it's really, really cool and awesome. And the last honorable mention we've also talked about already, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, another game I played like 3 hours of, and I definitely plan on playing more. I played it more earlier this week. It's really good.
Hey, credit to them though.
Yeah,
for earning their spot as honorable mentions in the Kirk
in my top 18 list,
you get
whatever.
A gold star. So yeah. Send those out to their publishers. So shout out to those titles. That's great.
Okay, number 15, Turbo Overkill. Actually, I have some gameplay footage of Turbo Overkill. Okay, I'll play it. Cool. This is my own personal captured footage that I have. Turbo Overkill is a game that was made by mostly one guy that is a boomer shooter, retro shooter with insanely high speed movement. You slide and you get upgrades with weapons. It's like a cyberpunk looking game that runs beautifully. It looks great. It looks retro, but also it looks good.
It looks like Iron Fury almost.
Yes, it's like Iron Fury used the Duke 3D engine. This game uses I think it's like either Unreal or Unity or something. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful to look at. It's fun to play. As you can see, you just like zip along. You find vending machines and upgrades. You have a chainsaw as a leg, so it's overkill because when you slide with your foot first, and your foot is a chainsaw. So you slide, you do tons of melee damage, you zip around. It's basically a game where it's a fast-paced shooter. You zip around with twin SMGs and you shoot people and hope you don't get killed. Simple as that. It's super fun. Tons of weapons. It looks really good.
Weapon upgrade, just because this is intriguing me.
Mm-hmm.
Gunfire Reborn. We played a bunch of that game, right? Where you could like kind of choose where you wanted to upgrade your weapon or what. Or I'm gonna think of a different game. We played.
No, that's right. It was on Game Pass, but that game is
a game where you upgrade the weapon that you have to be a little bit better each time. Like, does this have those like roguelite elements to it, or is that
it's not really roguelike because the game you're talking about, Gunfire Reborn, is sort of randomized each time you get different weapons. This is like a standard level structure of like, it's not random. These are bespoke designed levels, and there's strategically placed upgrades at the times that you need them. Here's a boss encounter.
you get to choose which upgrade to
Yes. So basically you have body slots. Like you can upgrade your right arm twice, your left arm twice, your left leg twice, and your right leg twice, or whatever. And you get to choose, you get to collect upgrades, and you choose what you have equipped at the same time. So there's a bit of an equipment thing. But if your equipment on your foot is every time you get a slide kill, it refills your health. There's like little upgrades like that kind of make the game easier or whatever. But there's also straight up weapon upgrades where you make your shotgun shoot. I'm making this up because I can't remember it offhand, but you can make your shotgun be like a slug shot instead of a spread shot, and it gives it electric powers instead of regular. So you do customize your loadout in a way that you can choose the way you want to play, but the levels themselves and the progression, it's not randomized. It's like standard. But in the end, it's a pretty relatively simple controlling game that is just really tight and really good at what it does. And if you're into the boomer shooters, you're into the fast-paced arena shooters, it's like that, but with good level design. I only played a couple hours of this, but what I've played, it is really good, and the soundtrack kicks ass. Though it's oozing that sweet cyberpunk aesthetic. It's amazing. The only hesitation I have on all of these type of games is that as a aging individual, my reflex timing, the game asks a lot of you in reflex timing and like twitch timing and all that kind of stuff. So it's one of these kind of games where you're locked in. It's the kind of game I can only play for like 30, 40-minute chunks because like it's like playing Doom Eternal. You just play it and it's just like it requires so much focus to like get through these combat scenarios that like I'm like tired after playing half an hour. So it's one of those kind of games. And if you're in the mood for that, a really high intensity game, this game is really cool. It's just cool. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's fun. It's cool. It plays well for what it's trying to do. It's great. Turbo Overkill. Check it out. Check it out. Number 14 is a game we haven't talked about pretty much at all. It's a little game called Street Fighter 6. A little indie title.
It's actually hilarious that we skipped this because I don't care.
This is 100% Matt's, our friend Matt's game of the year for sure. Street Fighter 6, I will say, I'm a casual fighting fan. I like fighting games, but on a casual level. I do not like going online and getting my ass kicked by people who play the games nonstop. I like playing single player campaigns. I like playing against friends in a casual setting, and that's my extent of fighting games. I like Mortal Kombat games generally. And I lean Soul Calibur if you talk about my favorite fighting game series. Street Fighter is one of the more complicated fighting games in the sense that like the different combos and counters and stuff that it demands of you to be good at the game is really intense. But what Street Fighter 6 does and why it made my top list is it made this game really fucking accessible. There's a beginner style control scheme that you can do that simplifies the game in a way where it's almost more of like Smash Brothers controls, where it's like you have like your punch, your kick, and like your special, and like it kind of simplifies things where you don't have to memorize 1,000 combos. Because I'm just not in any game. I'm not interested in the combo memorizing business. That's not my style. This game lets you kind of do the same controls for every character at the price of you have a slightly more limited move set. People who who play with the advanced controls can actually do more stuff and do more advanced stuff. So your disadvantage of playing with the simplified controls is you have a limited move set. However, you have just as much power and you can play your simplified moves against people playing a pro move. So I would play against Matt. He's using the full advanced move set. I'm using the simplified controls, but it's pretty balanced and we can fight each other and it works out pretty well. And the graphics and the gameplay, if you're like interested in fighting games as a casual fan, this game is for you.
So the game was fun.
It's fun.
It's actually really fun to play.
It's really fun. Let me
comparison to other games that are like fighting games that are less fun.
Yeah, let me see.
Made it fun.
For what it's worth, I played 15 hours of this game. Like, it's not like I played nothing.
I'm impressed that you played that much. And honestly, I would say fighting games seem sometimes like I don't really want to jump into the pool if it's super fan shit, you know?
Yeah, well, the other thing that this game does that's very fun is it it has this single player mode. It's called like World Tour or something. And it's like this big open city. You make your own custom character. Mine looks stupid as hell.
Well, I feel like the latest Smash Brothers, you had like a character and you had to like travel around the whole world and do all that stuff.
It is similar. Yeah. That's
fun ass single player then.
Oh, I made this full screen. I shouldn't have. Yeah. So basically the thing that's cool, I'm just showing gameplay of the actual like fighting. So it's not going to show this mode I'm talking about, but you basically walk around the streets and you can literally pick a fight with anybody, and it's really silly. And you kind of talk to the Street Fighter characters as you meet them and you learn their moves. You can actually make your custom character have a combination of movesets from all of the other characters. And the single player is actually really robust. And that was something where I told you I'm not into the business of getting my ass kicked online like my friend Matt is. He absolutely loves competitive fighting games, and he will spend hours upon hours practicing moves, practicing combos, getting good at characters. This game is for him as well. It's for people who like fighting games as well, of course. They all know about this game. But the reason they have a robust single player in a mode that I can play and enjoy that Matt didn't even touch. Matt didn't even touch the World Tour single player mode. He has not even played it. And I've played it. That's what I spent most of my time doing. And I had a great time with it. And I do plan on playing it more at some point, especially if Matt or anyone wants to play with me. That's fun as well. This game's cool. And I think it's accessible for people who are interested in fighting games, but are intimidated. It's just a fun time. And the graphics are really colorful and fun and good. And it works great on the Steam Deck.
That was a good sort of rundown on why the game's good.
And you and I played Tekken 7 back in the day, and I know that you occasionally be swayed into fighting games, and I think that this one, I think you're similar to me in that you're like interested in playing it. Like for me, I think the best
$60 was just enough. Like, yeah, like I was gonna pay for that,
dude. If it goes on sale for $10, just scoop it up.
I will.
Although the DLC, did you hear the DLC? Like to get all new outfits for every character, it's like $100 or something. It's like insane. Something stupid, but so let's get back to our list here. Street Fighter 6 is my 14, anyway, so not
14. I'm glad you like that game, and I do think it looks fun. myhouse.wad 13.
13. It's tough to put higher because like I said, the experience wasn't really me doing it as much as watching someone make a great video about it. But you know,
I tried, guys. I tried, did my best. But yeah, no, I agree with you that I didn't put it in your top 10.
Number 12, Sea of Stars. La la la.
I assume this is like a third-person RPG, but I have no idea.
I'm going to start with something that is going to intrigue you and make you want to know more and possibly even check it out. And then I'm going to say something that is going to make you say, actually, never mind.
Perfect. My two favorite modes.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this on. So I'm going to play some footage. I don't have that many clips of it. I only have maybe 3 minutes with footage, but we'll just loop it in the background. But Sea of Stars, and here's the thing that's going to really pull you in, by the people that made The Messenger. Do you remember that game, The Messenger? That was like a Ninja Gaiden-esque retro game. I'm pretty sure you played it a bunch. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think I beat it.
I think you did. I think you got farther than I did. It's
The Messenger. All right, hold on real quick. If I remember correctly, The Messenger, you play through the first half is in 16-bit and the next half is in 24-bit or whatever.
Yes. Yeah. So it starts off as like an 8-bit Nintendo game, and then it shifts into like a Genesis style game.
And I'll say my complaints about that game were that it didn't make the fact that your thumbs hurt either way afterwards. It was a fucking brutal masher, but it was
in the same retro style that that the original Ninja Gaiden games and stuff were supposed to be brutal as well. Sea of Stars is their take on like a Chrono Trigger, which is a game that I actually haven't really played, which is a famous JRPG. But if you look at this footage now, honestly, it's one of the most visually breathtaking pixel art games. If you like pixel art, which not everyone does, some people think it's overdone, this is such a gorgeous pixel art game. I was just like, it's just beautiful to look at and to be in the world. And the movement is really fast. You walk around with your party members, you choose the boy or a girl, and that kind of changes your main abilities, but you end up having them both in your party anyway. It's a turn-based RPG, and in that sense, it's pretty traditional. However, the combat does the thing that Super Mario RPG does, which is it makes it so there's a little bit more engagement in the actual combat. You have to time parries. If someone's attacking you in a turn-based thing, you actually have to time a block to try to prevent damage from being taken. Same with Super Mario RPG. When you're attacking, like there's a boomerang attack where if you tap A, every time the boomerang is about to hit an enemy, it actually will go for a second hit, and you can keep tapping until you mistime it. So if you're good at timing, you can hit people with this boomerang almost infinitely. And there's a timing skill element to the combat that's not just like normal turn-based combat. Choose your move, attack. It did this much damage. Now defend. This one adds a little bit of like timing and skill and stuff into the combat, and it whisks you in and out of these battles like in within the same level, and it's super stylish. And I think that it does a really, really good job at being what it's trying to do. I've never played Chrono Trigger, so I can't compare it to what that experience is like. I've played this game maybe six.
I played Chrono Trigger.
Okay, I played like 6 or 7 hours of Sea of Stars. I think it is amazing. And by the way, Cal, Game Pass. It's Game Pass. It's a free.
Here's my question. I have a pretty big question for you.
Here's the footage right now is the boomerang I'm talking about. I'm timing pressing A between each one of these hits, and I get like a 20 hit combo in there.
Which is sick.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want that in an RPG or a JRPG. Like, I don't know if I want button press mechanics in there. Like, I guess that's my like thing that I think you've talked about with this. And I mean, listen, I like Persona 5. I think RPGs can be fun, Pokemon, all that. Sometimes it's more fun just to press the button and just roll the dice.
I totally know what you're saying.
Feeling engaged with it. How important is that component to the game?
You can still play without it, but you're going to struggle. Like it is important because you're going to take a lot more damage if you're not timing parries. You're going to not do as much damage if you're not doing your special mana attacks and whatever else. I totally get what you're saying. I guess where I'm at is in the world with RPG Maker and like turn-based JRPGs are a dime a dozen. Like if you want that experience, there's thousands of games that will do that for you. In fact, the best example I can think of is a game that I played I've played like 80 hours of, and I'm still playing here and there, is Dragon Quest 11. Dragon Quest 11 Echoes of an Elusive Age is that RPG you're talking about. A beautiful.
Why do you like it? No, talk about that game for a hot second.
I mean,
why do you fucking like that game? No, it's important to understand.
It's just like it's like watching the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's a beautiful 3D world to explore with like good characters. The story is actually solid and the interactions are all funny and cool. And then the combat is kind of your standard JRPG stuff, but like you have 7 party members and you can only have 4 active at once. So you kind of juggle which ones you want. Do you want this healer in? Do you want this kind of caster or whatever? You choose your party lineup, whatever. But in the end, it's a warm bowl of soup of a game. It is a comfort game. You play it. It has a delightful, cheery soundtrack, a beautiful, like saturated landscape, fantasy world with your typical dragons and knights. And it's the kind of game when you just want some comfort game. Sea of Stars requires a little bit more of you in the sense that it does require these timings. And that is, in my opinion, what sets it apart. And like I say, if you don't want to play that style of games, there's so many pixel art JRPGs that will do that. The thing that I haven't said yet that is going to turn you off, which is showing on the footage now, it's an incredibly talky game.
Dialogue.
There's a lot of dialogue. You skip through and it seems charming. I've got the gist of the story, but I am smashing that skip button as fast as I can to get through it. Like there's no voice acting. It's all text reading. As you can see in the footage right now, this is kind of what a lot of the game is. And there's a lot of good exploration and secrets and combat is great. And all the stuff I was talking about is great, but you do have to endure a lot of talking, a lot of story. And that's kind of where it didn't get the hooks in me as much as it should have, because the game is sick. I love this game. I have a really soft spot for this game. But my God, you have to skip through so much dialogue. So
Sea of Stars was one of the big ones I wanted to talk about.
Yes, and Sea of Stars, it's on Game Pass and it's worth a shout. If you're even remotely interested, you can't argue with it when it's on Game Pass.
I'm interested.
I'd download it. Download it when you're chilling and just soak it in, man. It's cool. So again, I don't think I played it enough to earn a spot, to earn it higher than this. I said I played it for, I don't know, 10, 15 hours. It really fun, and I want to play more of it. Number 11. We haven't talked too much about it, but we don't need to dive into it because we did talk about it a little bit, but Pikmin 4. I'm a fan of the series, casual. I didn't play the first two. The first one I actually played was Pikmin 3 on the Wii U, and I enjoyed it. I beat the whole game. Pikmin 4 is just a fun time. I still have a lot to play of it, and it came out around the same time. I mean, I bought it like a week before Mario Wonder came out, so I played it for the entire week. I was really into it, and then Mario Wonder came out and kind of took that Nintendo Switch attention away, and then I switched to Mario RPG. I'll get back to Pikmin 4 at some point, but Pikmin 4, really fun, relaxing, awesome, good video game.
For you.
Yeah.
What did you like more, Pikmin 4 or Animal Crossing?
Very different experiences. Very like apples and oranges. I would say.
Okay, I don't know that.
I would say Pikmin 4 is a much better game. Animal Crossing is kind of Animal Crossing. You do a limited amount. And there's only so much you can do in a day, and then it tells you to log the fuck off. Like Animal Crossing, you play for an hour, and then it tells you to fuck off. And the people who play it for more than an hour a day are the people who are literally changing the clock in their Nintendo Switch systems to trick the game into time skipping. And that's what people do. So Animal Crossing is cool. And you know what's crazy? If I fired up my Switch right now, my number one most played game on the Nintendo Switch is Animal Crossing. And it's because I played it for 2 weeks. I only played it for 2 weeks. I played it a lot in those 2 weeks. And that was COVID. COVID hit. Doom Eternal and Animal Crossing came out in that famous time. It was the original Barbenheimer. I played a lot of Doom Eternal, and I played a lot of Animal Crossing, and I didn't play any Animal Crossing after that, but I played it so much in that 2 weeks that it was, and it was a magical experience because it was multiplayer, and I got to visit everyone else's house and whatever else. But yeah, Pikmin is game-wise, Pikmin is a much more sound, better game. Absolutely.
Great. All right, 10.
Here we go. This is it. Cal said my number 10 was going to be Resident Evil 4 Remake. My number 10 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor.
Wow.
As mentioned before, I'm working on a full-fledged video essay for this game, so I have a lot more to say in the future. We've talked about it already. I will just say this. Gameplay-wise, it is a step up in every way from the first game. If you like the first game, you will like this. Cal, I know you like the first game. You will like Jedi Survivor. I promise you that. Despite everything I said, the game is really good. Crusher, you said, did they ever fix the PC port? Heard it was pretty bad. I've actually heard that they have not fixed the PC port yet. Still, like 7 months later, do not get this game on PC. This is a console game to buy because the PC one is apparently broken as all hell. And I saw one Digital Foundry's worst PC port of the year, I think. So avoid this game like the plague if you can only get it on PC. But this game, gameplay wise, is awesome. Most of my problem with it is story. And story wise, I still think the game is pretty good. It's a pretty good story with a few massive rant-worthy flaws.
Which we will get a video for.
Which we will dive into much more detail later on. So number 9 for you guessing, you guessed Super Mario RPG Remake. And my number 9 is Super Mario RPG Remake. You nailed it, buddy.
Hell yeah. I knew you loved this game. I knew you loved it. I didn't think you loved it in like a top 5 way, but I could tell that
it's flawed in the way that an old Super Nintendo game is flawed because I played it. I beat it. I beat the entire game. And I will say most of the games in this top 10 are games that I have beaten, which is rare for me that I beat this many games in a year. Super Mario RPG Remake, the graphics are great. The game is so fun. It was so charming. Just a relaxing you're talking about second monitor games you play where you're like watching YouTube videos or doing whatever else. You're down there playing Isaac on your Switch. This is a perfect fucking game for that. It's a chill ass experience. The only thing is, like a lot of these old games, you'll hit a wall and I'll look up, and I'll just like, I'm like, life's too short for me to bang my head on the wall too much. I'll look up the solution and then find it was some super obscure ass old school 90s bullshit. But by and large, this game is sick. And you get Bowser on your team in this one. So Mario, Bowser, and Peach on the same team with a weird marshmallow guy named Mallow. I mean, what's not to like? This game is sick. Number 8, you guessed. Metroid Prime Remastered. My real number 8 is Metroid Prime Remastered.
Wow, I hit the remasters. I should have guessed better on RE4.
So you were pretty good list, man. So you got the 8 and 9. You got exactly right. And we've talked about Metroid Prime Remastered. It's the thing that finally got me to play this masterpiece. And
I think in the conversation, you lured me over to be extremely interested.
I think you'll like it. I think
game seems tight.
Well worth it. It's like maybe 25 to 30 hours to beat the whole thing, with like significant moments of me trying to figure out secrets and backtracking and wasting my time. So it's a good paced experience, and it's just sick.
Yeah. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Number 7, you guessed. Pizza Tower. We know Pizza Tower is not on my list, but
is it RE7 or RE4 Remake?
I actually forgot that I had this on here, but I'm glad I did. Lethal Company.
Hey, number 7. Okay.
Yeah, it feels weird putting it above, because I had such a good time with Metroid Prime Remastered and a delightful time with Super Mario RPG. It feels weird putting this game ahead. At the same time, Metroid Prime is a remaster. Super Mario is a remake. Jedi Survivor is a sequel. This game is doing some new shit. This is some trend-setting shit that's happening here. And then you load it up, and even though it's an early access, and it might be a pretty content light game, but this is about the journey, not the destination. This is about hanging with your buds, getting scared,
yep,
making decisions, typing in DOS prompts, doing some shit. A game that's completely unforgiving in a funny and great way. I can't wait to play more. And I said it feels weird putting it above Metroid Prime Remastered. When you look at it again, you're like, no, it's in the right spot. This game is cool. I can't wait to play more.
I love Lethal Company, so the fact that like you start with a new squad, okay, let's just make money from zero, and then you have to get your first haul, and then you have to get your second haul. Like there's this weird, I don't know what you'd call that,
progression,
like, build on it. Yeah, progression or whatever with the crew you're with that matters. So yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Great game with your buds. And here, do you know what's awesome? This game is $10. I felt pretty good about just gifting it to people. Lethal Company, man. Good shit. All right, number 6. You guessed Baldur's Gate 3. My number 6 is a game we actually haven't talked about online, is The Legend of Zelda. Wow. Tears of the Kingdom.
I had it at 5.
Yes, you were close on this one. I did an entire video essay on Zelda Breath of the Wild. It was my game of the year in 2017. In my opinion, it reset the standards for open world games, set the tone, and paved the path for Elden Ring to be what it is. That being said, Elden Ring is doing different, is a different game. There's the exploration and open world aspects, I think, borrows a lot of concepts from Breath of the Wild, but Elden Ring is doing its own thing. And, frankly, Elden Ring is it's unbelievable that game is real. Sometimes I'm like, is that game
on its own?
Sometimes I can't believe that game is real. It's like fucking nuts. That being said, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is fucking fascinating. It is literally the exact same 1-to-1 map as Breath of the Wild. So you're like, wait, huh? Except they added an entire layer, Elden Ring style, underneath. There's a whole underground section that is completely unlit that you have to find these little lanterns to light. You have to light, your path is to slowly light up the underground area. There's also they added a new area above the original map. So there's these sky islands, and you start off in the sky. And so there's this area above and below, and then they remixed the map from the originals. They got all new dungeons, everything else. Things are in different places. The world is in a totally different state. It's like hundreds, if not thousands of years apart on the timeline. So things are different. I haven't played enough of this game to put it any higher. I really like this game, but I've only played this game for 30 hours, which in the span of this type of game is not enough. This is one I already knew when I put it down to play whatever I was going to play next. I am not done with you, Zelda. I'm just like Breath of the Wild. I'm going to pick it up in a few months and get right back into it. The thing that this game does that is fucking mind blowing is the abilities that it gives you. There's abilities that you get in the first game that are like lifting objects and moving them around, or freezing an object and adding momentum to things. And there's some cool stuff with that. There's some cool stuff to play around with. This game, they had some fucking balls when they designed this game. In order to speed things up, the developers used this hack where they just jumped through the ceiling to escape a dungeon just so they could move on for development purposes. They were then just like, hey, you know what? It's way more fun to just jump through the ceiling and skip like walking out of this tunnel entrance and wasting time. We should just give this ability to the player. And they have this ability called Ascension, where you can jump through any ceiling you want to and go as high as you want, as long as the ceiling does. So if you're underground and you hit Ascension, you just go above into the next area. It's a game-breaking mechanic that they just give to you in the first like hour of the game. And you're like, what the fuck? And the craziest part is that's not even the main crazy power you get. The main crazy power you get in this game is this thing called the God Hand. And that's literally where you can attach objects to each other. This is no longer, in the first game, you could move objects. This one, you can move, attach objects, and it just adds, and then so they added a massive slate of not only simple machines, but complex machines, jet engines, wheels, wings, bubbles, whatever the fuck. And you can just make shit. You could make a armored core mech in this game if you have the engineering know-how to do it. This game is like limited only by your imagination and your creative ingenuity. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of that. So I'm not making mechs.
Well, that was gonna be my next question.
I'm making a basic cart with wheels on it that barely works. But then you attach a rocket to the back and shoot it off into the distance. This game is a broken, weird, sandboxy game of experimenting with physics. And
it's like Gary's mod.
Dude, it's Gary's. This is Zelda Gary's mod. Exactly. That's actually a really good comparison. This is Gary's mod Zelda without the paywalls. This game is fucking wild. And Breath of the Wild doesn't do any of that.
But does it, I mean, as an honest question, does it feel like those components makes it more fun to get to the end of like the game narrative? Okay.
You know, the game narrative isn't what draws you as much as kind of the open world thing of like, I want to get all of the towers so I can unlock this region of the map. But in order to do that, I have to go over here. Oh, what's over here? It's a boss in a cave. And oh, by the way, you can attach things to each other. That also means weapons. You can make hybrid weapons. Like you could grab a stick off of the ground, attach an axe to it, and you have an extra long axe with a super long handle that is like has absurd range. You could attach a sword to a log, whatever you find. If you don't have a weapon, you can grab a rock and put it on a stick and you have a club and you can smash through other rocks with. It's fucking crazy, man. Like,
but that helps you get to the end of the game. Like there's a point where you
there's a narrative.
The guy,
yes,
do the thing.
There's a narrative. There's goals. There's dungeons. There's things.
And these mechanics help you get there and improve the fun.
Yes, in fact, it's both good and bad because, like, it broke my fucking brain, man. Like the first, like one of the first major puzzles I had to solve for this big quest. Like, dude,
could you build something that would beat the armored force?
Well, it just gives you there's a bunch of parts and a bunch of shit lying around, and it's just like, hey, what can you do with this stuff?
Sound fun to me.
But then you can find out. But the interesting thing is, I then would later find out that there was a pretty simple way to do it if I just thought of it, but I didn't. You can come up with multiple ways to do the same thing. I'm not positive you'd like this game. Like,
no, fair enough.
But it is so crazy. And the thing is, this is a mainstream Nintendo Zelda game. For a big game to take this kind of a risk with the kind of shit it lets you do, like,
yeah,
whew, like I can't wait to play more. Art style wise, gameplay wise, it's Breath of the Wild, but adding these abilities is so crazy.
Now I'm kind of getting amped up for your top 5 here because I honestly thought that you really liked Zelda.
I do. But here's the thing.
And you do.
If I'm being honest with myself,
and it's fair.
As much as I like it, I was attracted to other games that hooked me in more. So
yeah, no, that's the fun of the exercise. So.
All that gushing about Tears of the Kingdom, it didn't crack my top 5.
That's what I'm saying. All right, well, let's go to number 5.
All right, baby. We didn't even show gameplay footage. Who cares? You guessed Tears of the Kingdom for 5.
But I missed Baldur's Gate. I said Baldur's Gate was going to be 6.
Baldur's Gate is actually going to make my worst game of the year. No, Baldur's Gate is actually number 5. So you just got them backward.
Okay. All right, I was there.
We haven't talked too much about this. We've streamed it a couple of times, but my God, this is basically D&D where the Dungeon Master is the game and you get to just play either single player or with your friends. And that's something that you and I've played some D&D when I was younger. I think that's something you talked about being interested in. And this game let us do that in a way that is a crazy learning experience that is fun along the way as you make mistakes. Mind-blowingly cool.
This game.
The variance in gameplay. This game is like an RPG and an immersive sim and D&D all at once. Some of the stupid shit that you did when we played together ended up being like the most memorable stuff. Like when we first killed those goblins and got to that very first druid camp, and I was talking to the townspeople and they were introducing me to the town. And I was like, Cal, are you listening to this? We have to make some decisions. And you're like,
I'm in jail.
I'm in jail. You went in and you looted a corpse and that was illegal. You got sent to jail. And right away, so I'm like, first thing we had to do was problem solve. Okay, Cal's in jail. I grabbed a lockpick kit. I slipped it to you between the bars. You picked the lock from inside. We had to sneak around and lay low while the heat went down. And then we could finally go out. It was a little side thing that was just like, we didn't know what to do. There was no like, oh, what button do we have to press? It was just like, hey, can I slip you? Like, hey, you can't pick the lock. Well, I have a lockpick kit. Can I give it to you? Yes, I can. Like, we just trial and error. This game is like trial and error. And you can save scum. We actually have been save scumming a little bit. We try not to do it too much, but if we end up, putting ourselves in a corner.
Well, it just tells you in the first 20 hours of a game how much fun there is to be had. There's a lot of excitement when you just break the rules. And honestly, I think the thing that you and I probably both feel about Baldur's Gate 3 is just like, I haven't really had the time right now to like sink back in, but I'm excited to when I can, Well,
also you and I kind of made a choice. So we started a co-op game. I think you had a solo game as well, right?
I did have I had a solo game.
So I have a solo game as well, but then we progressed further in our co-op game. And then I was kind of like, you know what? I kind of only want to play. I don't want to play this adventure multiple times necessarily this first time simultaneously. I want to do this once through properly. And then if I want to do subsequent playthroughs with experimenting, I can. So I kind of made the co-op game that we started is kind of my main and only game at this point. Yeah. So we got to continue it at some point because it's the main thing I want to focus on. And we make choices about going places and doing things, and there's so many things that pay off. There's like that room of explosive barrels that remember just by being the druid class and I could shapeshift into a cat, I was able to slip through a crack in the wall and spy on this other end and open this door to this other area. Dude, and it's just but that's just the class I picked.
Underground zone that I don't even know if we really want to fuck with yet, but there's that game's amazing.
And I think that maybe the most impressive aspect of it is all of this variety and what can happen in the game, but then there's voice acting and story that adapts to what happens. From what I understand, there's a core group of characters that are in your party that are at your camp. And I've heard other people say they've killed these players. That guy, that elf, what's his name? I can't even remember his name, but the silver-haired elf who's kind of like a thief character. Some people didn't like him and killed him. And the game lets you go on. That guy Gale, who's the wizard guy who's who's like addicted to consuming magic items for his own power. He's constantly demanding you give him like expensive magical items to feed his addiction. Some people have just killed him, and you can go on. And so the idea that like the game just adapts and has voice acting and lines that like adapt to what you do, and then you can like also there's like a romance, like sexual component to it. like I think your character, was it your character that hooked up with that orc lady? And it's just like
there's some
it's got it everything, man. This is the game that, as long as you're down with turn-based combat, which I am, and I think you are as well, as long as you're down for that kind of thing, and if you're ready to just like relax, and relax is a tough word because you still have to immerse yourself into it, and like, you know, there's still some drama and tension in the game, but it's just one of these games that is just a capital G game. It is a great time. It is good with friends. It is good alone. It's fucking rad.
We made progress. We could put a stop in it for a minute. Wait to come back. I'm excited to go back. You're excited. Like, it'll be fun when we re-enter that world. Says a lot about games, especially when you compare it to like Diablo 4, where it's like, oh, we can't actually make a game for you. You need to be churning and burning here. It's like, how about we just hang out in the moment and then take a breather for a sec?
This game is like hilarious too. With my orc character in the other game, in my single player game, at one point I picked up I'm not a bard and I don't have those abilities. I picked up a lute and tried to pump up the team. But I rolled like a 3. So you roll a lot of D20s in this game, and this game actually shows you the dice roll. And in my opinion, I love it. I love that it shows you the dice roll. It lets you see, like most games that are like this, like D&D games in the past, they'll do the dice roll as well, but they won't show you the dice roll. The computer will just do it, and then it'll happen in game. But by showing you the dice roll, it gives you a split-second heads up about what shit is about to go down. Which means, hey, you roll a 20 when you're going to kick a squirrel. That means you're going to kick it so hard, it's going to turn into bloody viscera. You know, if you roll, in this case, I wanted to pump up the team and play a song on the lute. I rolled a 2. And what happened is my guy played shittily on the lute. Like they actually programmed him playing a bad song, like out of rhythm. And everyone just looked at him like, what the fuck are you doing? And the fact that that's something that can happen where like, oh, I just want to, like, they could have just had a text message pop up that just says, your performance was very bad. Everyone is now more tense. But instead, there's a full animation of you being shitty at playing the song. And like, you're like, what? And you get to experience it with the other characters. And they're like, what the fuck is this guy? And it was so funny. And just like, you jumping into the chasm and then like realizing that actually had huge ramifications and we had to like solve it for the next like half an hour was a learning experience. But it was also part of what like made that whole section memorable, was that like, hey, you got us into trouble. We had to figure out a way around it. Death is hard to get by. We learned all the systems and stuff. But that kind of emergent gameplay is what makes this game so special. Yes, I prefer to make sound decisions and be in agreement, but you kind of being you and doing your own thing led to some really fun stuff, you know?
Well, you know what? I think it's interesting because I feel like what Larian did with Baldur's Gate 3 is like the that tabletop simulator, which you and I have messed with a little bit, which is like, it's like a cool way to set up games and do stuff like that, but it's like they create enough of a boundary and then wrote the stories that match that, you know? So fucking great game.
Yeah. We're probably not even doing it justice. I have played this game for 28 hours. So yeah, it's just like Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is a game that is extremely good. I've only played, it's weird saying only 30 hours because in any other form of entertainment, 30 hours is plenty. And I got a
minus
50.
83.
Whoa.
Probably aggressive.
Whoa. You played a lot more of the single player then. Holy shit.
Great top 5. Great.
Dude, this is like nothing but bangers.
Fucking rocks. I'm very happy it exists. And I never went to bed and was like, man, I hope Baldur's Gate comes out. I didn't give a shit.
No, dude, I saw that reference about the kicking the squirrel. I saw someone post that clip on Twitter of them encountering a squirrel, trying to use their druid powers to talk to it, failing, having the squirrel nibble at their ankles, them kicking the squirrel, rolling a d20 and kicking it into a bloody pulp. I saw that 30-second clip and I was like, what the fuck? I bought it right then. And I said, Cal, I think we got to look at this game.
Let's go.
Like, I was like, this game is like, I'm like, it's going to let you do that kind of shit. Like, this is like a true D&D experience. I was like, holy shit. And
I'll
like,
say one more thing too. There have been some moments in the game that you and I have where it's like a little bit of a Mario Rabbids or whatever type game system where it's like, okay, we're coming up on this situation. How do we position our people? How do we do da-da-da? Like, there's this weird component.
It's funny. You said Mario Rabbids when anyone else would say XCOM, but yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
There's like these really cool moments where you have to like think about combat.
Yeah. A lot of like tactical strategy. The actual, like, we're talking about the fun moments in the story. The actual combat requires a lot of strategy, and positioning matters. Watching your footing and slippery ground, and is there burning oil? Like that stuff matters, and it's cool to think about. And that also is where the real challenge. That game is hard. Like, this game is pretty fucking hard. It's a good thing it lets you save scum. That's all I'll say.
Here's what I'll say. Last question. Still number 5?
Yeah.
On the list.
Still
5 on the list. All right,
dude,
let's go. Let's go.
Have you seen these next 4? I'm
ready to talk about them.
Okay. So number 4, you guessed, was Star Wars Jedi Survivor, which I had at number 10. You actually got this swapped with what the real answer is. For me, it is Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Fair enough. Should have known.
You didn't know until, because one of the reasons we had you guess at the top of the stream is because as soon as we start talking about any of these games, it's going to tip my hand, and you could have made a more, the way I talked about Resident Evil 4 Remake earlier, you probably would have bumped this up a little bit, I'm guessing.
Yeah, and I should have known.
But are you surprised that as a hater, as a known person who is probably objectively wrong about Resident Evil 4, the original, is it surprising that this game I liked so much? Is that a twist, or is that just kind of like?
No, I think it's great. I think it's great. I think at number 4 of games of the year, this makes a lot of sense.
Resident Evil 4, number 4.
RE4, it also just like the storyline's amazing, and I that's why I haven't dove in, because it's like I feel like Resident Evil Village gave me like the light experience, and as soon as I'm ready for the full thing, I'll be ready to go for it. But yeah, dude, I'm stoked that it's number 4 on your list.
You are much more of a survival horror guy than I am. It's not exactly my favorite genre. I think it can be very good. My problem is a lot of it is not combat focused, and it's more get scared in a haunted house with no defenses kind of thing, Outlast or whatnot.
Games,
what makes Resident Evil 4 so special, and what makes, you could say this about the whole series, is that it's got a lot of action and a lot of kick-ass action, but it also is a survival horror game. Like, you have to manage your resources. You got to be watching those shotgun shells. You can't just be shooting shotguns at everybody. You got to use the environment to save ammo. You got to make crazy decisions in your inventory about what you're going to carry and what you're not going to carry. Are you going to upgrade the pistol, or are you going to save up for the next pistol? Are you going to...
What are you buying?
What are you buying? Yeah. This game, the action is so good. The action is the juice, as they say. The survival horror elements are... there's some scare... Like I said, there's some tense shit in this game. That toward the end, what are those enemies called? The ones that like flop out of the refrigerator and like chains and like have spikes that come out, and you have to get a thermal gun with a thermal scope to shoot the parasites out of their brain. Wow. Like, those monsters are like some of the scariest monsters I've seen in games, because especially before you get that thermal scope, like some of the most intimidating monsters in a game. And that's like, or I'm just on the edge of my seat. Like, I honestly am shocked I beat this game, because I'm like, it is unbearably tense at times. Like, even early on in the game, when you have to defend that cabin from all of the monsters coming in, the cabin.
It's a spooky game.
It's that one is just like a lot of the scariness is just the tension in the combat too. And in this game, I didn't bump up against the controls or the clunky movement. This game feels great. And well, to me, the difficulty was in the combat and in the scenarios and how you solve things. And I wasn't wrestling with the controls. And that's what my problem with the original. I know it's a cold take. I know I'm wrong. But
no, but the truth of the matter is the remake allowed you to play a game that everybody else loves, and you got to love it too.
People will say that
the fucking win.
Exactly. I've heard people say Resident Evil 4 is like a perfect game, and the remake just made it a little bit better. In my opinion, it made a game that I think is a little. If you didn't play it back in the day, and I know you didn't either, I just feel like it's a little like GoldenEye. It's just like great at the time, but like I think we've moved on from that control scheme. No, like how come no one's made Resident Evil 4 control scheme ever since? Because it sucks. But at the same time,
they agree with that because like partially for me, I don't need to play Resident Evil 4 remake right away because like I just played it 2 or 3 years ago,
totally,
and loved it. So it's like, why do I want to create an experience when I already love the old one? But I will be excited to play this one.
I think you will love this one. I haven't heard anyone who liked Resident Evil 4 who played this and like didn't think it ruled.
Honestly, to me, it's like crack. It's like I just know as soon as I load that into my computer, I'm gonna be fucking addicted, and I'm not gonna want to. Like I'm saving.
You're gonna blast through this in like a week, man. Like it's not even gonna take you that long. I'm excited, and I hope you stream it. That's all I'll say.
I will for sure.
All right. So here we are, top 3. This is where
2023.
Okay, number 3, you guessed Dave the Diver. My number 3 is Dave the Diver. You got it right on. There you go, man. We haven't talked about this game much.
Just an amazing game.
This game I heard about from another no clip video on YouTube. They're like, hey, we've been playing this early access game, Dave the Diver. And then I looked it up. It looked great. I looked it up and then it was coming out like in a week. So I just waited basically for the game to come out. I bought it like the day it came out, like out of early access or whatever. And I was telling you about it too. And it's a game that does so much because on one hand, yes, it's a game where you go and you fish for fish to put in a sushi restaurant. You use the fish that you catch to make sushi. You can research new recipes, whatever else. If it was just that, it would still be pretty good, but maybe not my top 10. Where the game goes fucking nuts is just that, like, oh, by the way, here's a DDR element of the game. Oh, by the way, here's a farming sim aspect of the game. Oh, by the way, it's a different season. It's tuna season now. And so now the water you're used to is so different. Oh, by the way, there's sea people and there's this whole city under there and there's shit. It doles out. It's really well paced in that it lets you learn the game mechanics. And then as soon as you learn and get comfortable with the game mechanics, it tosses something new your way. Oh, now you can catalog the creatures. Oh, now you actually can breed the creatures, the sea creatures you find in your tanks.
Race them and gamble.
Now you can race them and gamble seahorses and like horse racing. Like there's so many mini games and they're not all great. There's definitely there's some that I play. I did the horse racing once and I'm like, okay, don't need to do this again.
I did it a few more times.
You had to bet on your ponies, you know? But the game it was both super relaxing, and as someone who has a little bit of thalassophobia and like Subnautica, fear of the open ocean, it's fear of going too deep. It's the fear of the depth. I definitely have that, and I think there's almost nothing on Earth scarier than the deep sea. This game, I didn't feel stressed out too much playing. There were definitely some stressful moments, like when you have a huge like haul of rare fish, and then like suddenly there's a shark, and like you have to get by it before you get to, like, there's definitely some stressful moments for sure. And encountering some of the bigger sharks for the first time is intense, but you upgrade your weapons and you get stuff at a good quip where you can kind of start to handle that stuff. But just all in all, the graphic style is amazing. Like whenever you learn a new recipe, I actually was maybe the most into the sushi restaurant aspect of the game. I min-maxed the shit out of my cooking staff. I made sure I had really efficient stuff, them fetching ingredients at a good pace. I made sure to pump up and upgrade the certain recipes with the expensive fish. So that way I was always making killer fucking profits on the best sushi. And like, you know, I got really into the sushi restaurant sim aspect of it, which is something I did not expect. I expected to be all about
unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary. But like, hey, making more money is better.
Well, also, I think it credits the game for allowing you to play it however you want to play. Like, there's depth from the story, there's depth from the side stuff, there's depth from like, it's an amazing game, and I can't believe it was made by like some random ass studio.
Yeah, so this got a lot of flack for the Game Awards because it was listed as an indie game, but it's a huge Korean studio behind it, and it's in no way indie. But I think they basically
whatever.
But basically, it's got the indie. It's the debate of whether indie is an independent studio or if it's an aesthetic, because this game has the indie game vibe. Like, it looks like it could be a Stardew Valley. Like Stardew Valley was made by one guy. And it looks like it could have been that, but this is not that game. This was made by a lot of people and funded by a big company, but it doesn't matter.
Well, I think the poor choice by people is to make the assumption that this is like and or type thing. Like, if this is a big ass studio who made a game like this, then credit them to make a game that feels diverse and interesting and lo-fi and all these components together.
There's a lot of charm. There's a lot of funny stuff going on. I laughed a lot playing this game. There's good stuff. The weird weapons guy is super bizarre, and it's cool. It's just a cool ass game. Chill time. Not much not to like. And that's my number 3 game of the year.
Who got mad about the, I don't know. I just saying, like, people who are like, oh, it's not indie or it is, like, who cares?
Well, the whole thing with that is more like, okay, so it's up against these games that were like, had like a shoestring budget, and this game did not. And so it's like, is that a fair thing? But at the same time, the Video Game Awards is just a large excuse to show marketing material to you. So it's hard to put any real weight into any of that. So
with better fucking
that's why this is the real Game Awards here. This is the real shit, you know.
Yeah, nobody cares about that shit. They only care about what Kirk Linden.
I didn't put Death Stranding on here because I'm buddies with Kojima. You know what I mean? It's like,
the bottom line is Dave the Diver is a fucking dank game. It was really fun to play.
Yeah.
So there.
Do you know what I value? My list is really values fun and playing the game being fun. Speaking of playing,
there's nothing on this top 15 that doesn't seem fun.
All right, so you guessed Lies of P is my number 2, and it is in fact Super Mario Wonder.
Wow.
I knew you were going to be fucking shocked.
Oh, I'm very happy. Bodhi, come in here. Let's celebrate. Let's get up the good champagne.
I know you have some grievances to air with Super Mario Wonder. I will let you do that. I just want to start off. I'm not going to go into detail. I just want to say this game is pure fun. I loved this game. I was literally had a smile on my face most of the playthrough of most of the levels. And when I got the Wonder Flower of each level, and then it transformed into something, almost always I was like, oh, sick. This is cool. It was my reaction to almost every time. And there's like 80 levels. And it's like every time I picked that thing up, it was something a little different. Yes, they repeated a few times, but like, honestly, barely. Like there's some cool shit that happened once and one time only. And then you're like, whoa. It has just the right amount of challenge and secrets. Although I would say the game is a little on the easy side until you get to the final gauntlet. I don't know. Have you beat the game?
No.
Okay. There's the final gauntlet is tricky as hell. And the special world has some tough levels. But I'd say it's a little on the easy side, but I do think it balances all of the gameplay elements that I love with Mario. There's a lot of secrets, secret exits, and there's also a good way of tracking the secrets that you've got and in a way to know where to look. Like it does some things where you're not going on a wild goose chase to see which level has the secret exit. It's kind of like, hey, there's something maybe you didn't finish in this level and maybe a secret exit. Maybe it's just a seed that you didn't find or whatever else, the Wonder Seeds. I just think I also love the graphic style in this game. I think it's a big step up from the new Super Mario Brothers art style. I think the art style was charming. The music is good. I like all of the new sound effects. It's for the first time in a long time they replaced the jump and the fireball and the pipe, and they've replaced all of these sounds. And I think it just has a fresh take. It just feels fresh for a game that is recycling a lot of the same Mario gameplay ideas. It's just pure joy. Like, I think it's so fun. And I also think a really underrated aspect of it is this game, you can play online multiplayer in the way that's similar to like Dark Souls and seeing people's ghosts go around. And that proved to be a really interesting part of the game because I could see other people looking for secrets, and I could see that someone was standing on a platform that I couldn't see. And so I'm like, oh, there must be an invisible platform here. And so seeing other people in the level kind of gave me ideas on what to try to look for secrets. And you know me, LMS, level maker secrets. I love searching for secrets. This multiplayer aspect is something I didn't expect to like so much. And I felt weird playing without it. Like I played the first few levels single player and I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. But then you turn the multiplayer on, I'm like, it kind of ends up being this like collaborative process with these random people you meet, and then you meet and you help each other out, and then you never interact again potentially. And it's just really fucking cool. It takes a lot of the basic stuff of Mario, nails it, and then adds a bunch of layers with the Wonder Seeds, the remix levels, and the multiplayer, and just puts it all together in this package. I 100%ed it. I got every item, every secret, every Wonder Seed, every coin, every standee. I literally played this game to its like full completion. Fucking amazing. Great time. It was like 30 hours too. It was like 25, 30 hours. Perfect length for this type of game. Perfect.
Do you think it took you 30 to get to the full 100% point?
Yes. And I would say, I'll tell you this, I think it took 25 to get to the last level and probably 5 hours alone to beat the last level. So I think 5 of that hours, but it's optional. This is an optional secret final level. I saw credits at like 20 hours. I saw the game's credits at 20 hours and I beat the game at 30 hours, if that makes sense. It's like how much you want to put into it. If you want to just play the game and beat Bowser, spoiler alerts, Bowser is the bad guy in this. If you want to just go to Bowser's castle and beat him and see credits, you can do it in 15 to 20 hours. I got 30 hours and I did it 100% and did everything in every level. So that's why it took that long.
I think that's a great number 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 game of the year. I have my own, like, I guess issues with Super Mario Wonder. I don't quite understand. I wish it was like deeper a little bit. And maybe I just haven't gotten there yet. But it does not feel like, feels like whatever I learned in like the first 2 or 3 worlds carried me through the next 2 or 3. And now I mean, I haven't finished it yet. So maybe my opinion doesn't matter yet.
I mean, it does matter. I mean, you've played a bunch of it. It's a tricky one because I know what you mean. You want there to be deeper stuff in there, but if you haven't beaten it, you don't know how deep it goes. I know, like
kind of what I'm saying. Yeah,
it does go deep. Like, and if you think the game ends at the special levels, it doesn't. You know, like it's there's stuff going on, and there's secret exits,
okay.
And there's
all right, fair.
There's
enough.
it's you know, is it?
Like, I think I'm far enough into the game where I'm like seeing the end, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll get to it. You know, which probably is a function of me, also, but like. I'm not feeling like, oh, I need to just get this done, and maybe that's your point. Is like there's more shit below the surface that I haven't even
sure. Well, I mean, just like any
seen yet.
It's weird to describe this as like a work of art, but it is. I think it is a work of art. All the stuff, art is consumed differently by different people and different things. I didn't play it because I felt the need to beat it all. I did it because I loved playing it and I wanted to play it more. I was like, hey, I feel like gaming. What do I feel like gaming? Like, do you know what will make me fucking really happy immediately? Running and jumping and playing a great 2D Mario game, the way that I just will fire up Mario World sometimes just to play it for a little bit, not even to beat it, just to feel it, just to feel alive again, just to play some fucking Mario.
Totally, dude.
And this game, I just played it to the end because I wanted to play some fucking Mario. And honestly, it didn't overstay its welcome, and it wasn't too long. And I don't think Mario games are ever too long. Well, there's some, but like, I think that
also contextually for me, like I was like, I'm not gonna get this until the beginning of December. Then I got it. Then I played the shit out of it. I've got like 25 plus hours, so I've played a lot of the game.
And then that's a lot of hours. I mean, you should be, yeah. You're probably pretty close
to the point where I'm not like thirsting over the end. I think I'm in like the fucking underground rock stage, like World 7 or 6 or whatever it is. But I like the game a lot. I don't want to distract from the fact, but also it's like, yeah, and it's also a fucking Mario game.
Yeah,
it's a game that's like for all ages. That's like a fun experience, and maybe I'm the fool for trying to like rush through something that should be enjoyed more. You know,
yeah. I mean,
a rolled out type experience.
Yeah, and that's totally valid. And I think that you're looking at this list, and we were talking about Baldur's Gate 3, even the stuff I was saying in Tears of the Kingdom, Lethal Company. These are games that are doing stuff that is not necessarily new, but it's new to me and does some wildly ambitious stuff. Super Mario Wonder is both safe and ambitious at the same time. On one hand, it's a safe 2D Mario game that you know what it is. On the other hand, you get a Wonder Seed and then it changes to a top-down view and you're like, what the fuck is this? And so that is a huge swing. So it's like it's both safe and ambitious at the same time. I would say even on its best reading, it's not reinventing the wheel or anything, but I'd say it feels like the true successor to Super Mario World, and Super Mario World is one of the best games ever. So I think it's a hard one for me. I'm not saying it's better than Mario World. I'm not even close to saying that, but I'm saying that you can put it in that echelon with Mario 3, Super Mario World, Super Mario Wonder. These are fucking near perfect 2D platformers that you would just say these are prime examples of what this genre can do and why these running and jumping in the 2D plane feels so good. You can put it right up there with those two. So,
and to give credit, I mean, it is a great game.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting contrast to the number one game on here, which you know what it is, but Super Mario Wonder, I would say, is a near flawless experience. I know you had issues with the talking flower, which I didn't mind at all. Even though I understand how it can be annoying or grating. It's kind of like when I say sometimes you just embrace your corny side. I was just not bothered by the flower seeds, and they don't talk often enough, and they don't talk long at all. They just say weird things like, I wonder what's happening here. And it's like, and it's not long enough to annoy me. It's I could take it or leave it. It's not something I loved or anything, but I didn't mind it. But besides that, it's a near flawless experience.
At this point in the game, I don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
That was like a pre-game.
I can see how you could be worried about it in the first level. You're like, is this really what? But it says weird shit that's obtuse and random and whatever else. But you know what it is. We've barely even mentioned this game, but we're gonna put it here at number one. You guessed it was Super Mario Wonder. You had 1 and 2 flipped. My game of the year is Lies of P.
Dude, it makes me so happy.
You and I both beat this game,
because
and
I
actually
loved this game.
Why don't I go ahead and play some random footage from baby. Random capture here.
This is your capture. This is not a YouTube.
This is my capture. So these are random clips from me playing the game.
That's real Kirk.
That's me playing the final boss. Spoilers. I have it shuffling in a random order, so it's going to show stuff from all over the game. You and I are both huge fans of the Dark Souls games. Bloodborne is my favorite of them, personally.
Both become enraptured with this type of gameplay over the last 7 years or so.
Yeah, and I'll admit I've tried a few. I guess you call them Souls-likes. Games that are trying to be like the Dark Souls games. I'd say mostly for me, it would be Neo and Wolong. You could almost call Fallen Order a kind of Star Wars Dark Souls-y kind of thing. You played Code Vein, for example, which was a game. that was made in the Souls style, but not by From Software. For a while, you talked pretty highly of it. And I think that by and large, I think that was one of the games that people considered almost worthy, but not quite. Yeah. This game, in my opinion, is fucking worthy. This game, if you told me this game was made by FromSoft, I would have believed you. I would have fucking believed you. The story is there. The lore is there. I played a split between Xbox and PC. I mostly played it on Xbox. I'm just going to say it. This game looks and runs better than almost any FromSoft game. And that's fucked up. That's fucked up. Like, I don't think I'm not saying art design and art style. I think the art design and art style of Bloodborne, of Elden Ring is superior. I think that the aesthetics or whatever else. This game played at a locked 60 frames per second and didn't drop. Elden Ring runs to this day like crap. And it does. They still haven't fixed it. It's the one of the best games ever made, and it still runs pretty shittily. This game was perfect. It did, like, in a game that demands so much from you. I mean, we haven't even said what this game is about. It's a Pinocchio game. Lies of P. You play as P, aka Pinocchio, and there is a giant massacre of the puppets turning on the human beings in this society where puppets are servants. They're basically blue collar workers. The puppets have somehow turned and killed everybody, and you're trying to solve this mystery. You're with your guy Geppetto. You're with your lady Sophia. There's this other people. You got Vanini over there trying to sell you his wares and whatnot. So all of that stuff is there. That's what the game is about on a one level. You're a puppet and you're slowly becoming a real boy.
That's not what the game's about.
Well, no, it's not. But I'm just saying that if you're talking about a basic premise where I haven't said anything about the premise yet, where before we dive too much into the mechanics.
No.
But I was just saying that, like,
sorry, I didn't mean to jump you.
But this game, like, it basically does a lot of the stuff that the From games do. I'd say, if anything, the story is a little bit more clear than most From games. But it still has that mystery. There's still the vibe. It's still not totally clear. It's still not like they don't hit you over the head with it. It's still something it's like you get what you get what you put in with the story. It's like, if you want to learn more, if you want to read the stuff, if you want to do the side stuff, you can learn about it. If you just want to play the action game, you can just play the action game. But I think one thing that's really interesting about this game, compared to Super Mario Wonder, I think this is a flawed game. I don't think it's perfect. I do not think this is a perfect game by any stretch. I think there's a bunch of things wrong. I was frustrated at many points with it. But the fact is that the highs were so high, and the feeling of beating the game and beating some of these challenges was so good that it made all of the flaws not matter as much. Like, I could complain about the pacing of the end of this game, where that last stretch going from those final bosses was straight up annoying. I did not like it one bit. I don't think it was fun. However, the actual final boss fights are fun. The spoilers if you want to hear the names of some final bosses, but the Lextasia to the Simon Manus to the Nameless Puppet, those are three heavy hitter bosses. When we do our tier ranking, we'll talk about them, but those are good boss fights. And that's what makes what saves the ending of this game. Because otherwise it does exactly what From Software does, which is drop the ball at the end, which they almost always have to some degree, particularly in DS1, where just like suddenly like there's a sharp decline in quality of areas and bosses. And that almost happens in this game. I think it's like potentially 5 to 10 hours too long, in my opinion, which I know we're going to differ on that because we talked about this offline. We don't need to go into it now, but this game is loaded.
Need to go into it.
This game is loaded. It's got everything. And I think that the thing that it does different than the From games is also why I'm dying to go back and play it with a new character, because there's a weapon crafting system where you can there's a weapon handle and then a weapon, like the actual weapon. And you combine the handles and the weapons to give totally different move sets that cater to totally different character attributes. And there's no permanent crafting of these things. So it does give you the opportunity to experiment and try things out. It's very friendly to the player in that regard and unforgiving in other areas of the game. But I'm glad that it emphasizes the ability to experiment. It has a little training courtyard where you can test your moves out, which is fucking huge. I use that training courtyard constantly to test out shit. And so I just want to, like, I played it. I did the living puppet blade for a lot of it, the saw blade for a huge chunk of the game. And I want to do it again, doing more of a dex build and try different weapons with different movesets, because one of the draws of Dark Souls and Elden Ring and even Bloodborne is the different play styles that you can do the same stuff and accomplish the same stuff with. This one game has all of that, because I just think there's so much possibilities and variety in play style. Like, I got pretty good at deflecting by the end of the game, but I'd be curious going through on a more fragile dex build and testing my skills and being more of a parry god from the beginning and using more finesse weapons and trying stuff out and experimenting. And this game is really great about all that stuff.
I mean, listen, I love this game.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an amazing game. I think the bosses themselves are all epic. I think the sections between when you go to boss areas, like you're kind of saying, like trying out different weapons and doing all that sort of stuff. Like, I don't really know if there felt like there was much in between bosses to make you want to try different weapon combinations or whatever. Like, a great example is there's a big part of this. You go into this like swamp area.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, if there's a swamp area and maybe having a different type of sword or different type of like build, like it felt to me like that. I don't know. Personally, I didn't feel like I got impacted enough to care that much about changing my weapon stuff. Beyond just like,
no, I don't think it's
against the boss.
Let me be clear. I don't think that it's out of necessity. I don't think it's like, oh, you hit a wall and then you have to change your weapon to continue. I don't think that's what I mean. I mean, in the sense that I had serious FOMO with some of the weapons. I like the weapons in my inventory. I'm like, am I really going to go through this game without using the giant wrench? Like, I want to use this.
No, I think you bring up a good point.
It's more FOMO and less of a necessity.
Here. And I feel like I just didn't really need to ever change from my XYZ combo.
I think you could have used the default weapon the entire game if you wanted to. And I think the cool thing about it is I think that everything seems pretty viable. And I think that's rad. And I think that what I'm saying is, like, I think I felt a pull towards some of the cool, crazy designed weapons that I wanted to try, even though I used 3 weapons for the entire playthrough. I used the balance blade for the first third of the game. I used the saw blade for the middle third, and I used the living puppet blade for the last half. And so in the end, did I do a ton of experimenting? Not really. I mean, I built a bunch of stuff and tried it out in the courtyard, and I upgraded the acid spear and tried a few different things. But in the end, I was min-maxing my build towards strength. And when you min-max your build towards strength, there's a few weapons that are just better than the others. The saw blade and the living puppet blade are just better when you have a strength build. But that's one of the reasons why I want to start it and do different stats. Because if I wasn't so reliant on strength, or in this game it's called motivity, I just think that it would open up the doors to different play styles, which, you know, it's kind of like how I'm going through Dark Souls 1 as a magic build. It's totally different experience than going through with the Uchigatana Pyro build. It's just one of these things where, did I need to change to a magic build? No. Did I want to? Yes. That's what it's about. It's like, I don't think this game you need to change weapons ever. I think every single weapon you get, you could just play. But I think it's more about just
I wasn't trying to challenge you against that. I was just saying more like, it's interesting to think about all the different ways you could do things. And then when you're in the game, you're like, fuck it. My hammer with blah, blah, blah is working. So I'm just going to like chip away.
Well, I think generally in Souls games, and I'm just going to call this a Souls game, I think that in the first playthrough, it's about surviving. It's about learning.
Winning.
It's about winning. Yes, and you want to find the path of least resistance to that.
I agree.
So once I saw how much the DPS of that saw blade, you know, I loved. I used that special boss weapon, the 7 coil sword that has the really cool alt.
Kirk was thirsty and he was being fulfilled. He was like, all right.
So yeah, I used that boss weapon for a little bit. It had a good moveset, but then I saw the DPS of that saw blade, and I'm like, you know, And then I used the police baton handle the whole game because it had that really quick R2 for doing the stagger attacks and all that stuff. I will say there's a ton of little upgrades in this game, and you look at all of them, and I got so much choice paralysis staring at this list of upgrades because they all seemed like things you want. They all seemed good.
Imagine. You were frozen.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, right? Like it's one of these things where sometimes you have upgrades in games and you're just like huge skill trees in some games, like, you know, like say like a Far Cry game, which I enjoy a lot of Far Cry games. Huge skill tree, and you're like, oh, this ability lets you do this and lets you do that, and you're like, I will never do that. This is stupid. Why would I ever spend money on that? This one is like every single ability you're like, oh, well, that sounds good, and like, oh, this one will increase their stagger window, but this one will give me an extra health charge, and like, oh, this one will, it's like
kind of crack for people who have played FromSoft games, because suddenly
it's like cheats. You get like little
baby cheats.
Yeah, they're not cheat codes exactly, but they're like little scraps.
It's like, what if you got 2 rolls? What if your window was that much better, and you're like, oh, maybe.
Yeah, no, this game is sick. It's so good. And I think that there's a couple things that we talked about this game. And I will say in general, I think the boss roster is very strong. I think that there's not a lot of weakness in the boss designs. Like there's some that are hard. There's some that are cheap. There's some that are real skill tests. I think that Scrapped Watchman is a big early game skill check. But once you get those deflects down, you feel like a goddamn god. And it's like, and it's really good. I know you were getting at it, and we were kind of in like.
No, I'm about to get dramatic.
We've been kind of interrupting points to make other points because there's a lot to say about this game. The footage now is maybe my least favorite boss fight. Which is saying a lot because it's like it's not a terrible boss fight, but like this was
the best boss fight of the game.
No, you're lying.
No, I really think it was.
No. That's easily my least favorite. That's fascinating.
That's the best boss fight of the game.
You did mention that you didn't think there's a lot in between the boss fights, and I will say, except for that last section, which I was actively annoyed by, I strongly disagree. I think this game has really good areas to explore, and I don't think it's about encouraging you to necessarily change weapons or anything, but I think the areas in this game were fan-fucking-tastic. And to me, that's as important as boss battles. And it's one of the reasons why you and I differ on some FromSoft games. But I think the areas are super important. And by and large, I think this game fucking nails it. Are they as open and explorable as some other games in this genre? Not really. But there's still plenty of. I heard that this game was really linear in the areas, and I was like, okay. But there's still a lot of secrets. There's a lot of exploring to do. You're always rewarded for going around that corner, finding there's an extra moonstone over here, and there's a little Legion caliber over here.
I don't know if I can fully buy in with that.
But all the areas were cool looking. There's a wide variety aesthetically. You start off in a Bloodborne style streets, and it's like Victorian England era kind of vibe. And then you go into Resident Evil 4 into the swamp area. And then it's like, not before that, but one of my favorite areas is the factory. I think the puppet factory is sick. And I think it's also an area, a type of aesthetic we have not seen in a Souls-like, because you're dealing with like modern gears and metal, and there's these like fucked up puppets coming out. And I think that the enemies in each area really reflect what the area is doing pretty well. I think the swamps in this game are not annoying. There's no terrible swamp area. There's some that are less fun, but it's like, except for the last gauntlet stretch of this game, the final chapter, where it was just felt like padding and just filler to get to that final boss. I think that the areas in this game were awesome. The arcade, this area, the exhibition they were showing right now with the white lady leading into after Rosa Isabella Street, that goes right into the exhibition hall where the robots are, where you fight cool. I don't accept, like I said, except the last area. I think all the areas are pretty kick ass. There's nothing as cool design wise as say like Central Yarnum or Cathedral Ward, where you have these areas that loop back on itself and whatever else. There's no mind-blowing level design. There's no Undead Parish to the Firelink Shrine moment. Yes, there's the gold coin tree at the end of the Black Rabbit Brotherhood that leads back to the hotel. But like, You and I have talked
I
about
mean,
that
also,
moment
that's
before.
just like a lame ass thing.
Yeah, and we all
now
love
you're
the
back at
gold coin
hotel.
tree.
Who cares?
we all,
Who cares?
Cal loved the
Didn't
gold
matter.
coin tree. But
Yeah,
the
the gold coin tree was a big old bummer to me. I think this game's amazing.
yeah.
Number one, blah blah blah. Do you think that some of the components of what they built into this game forces the like an elevation of From Software to do better next round? Like, is this the game that kind of shoves them in a direction? Because partially, number one, From Software's DS1, amazing world design, no question about it. DS2 is what it is. A lot of people have different opinions. I think the game's great and fun, but a lot of the ideas there didn't get continued. DS3 was all about boss design. I don't know. I just feel like this might push From Software into a new direction. Elden Ring was amazing game, but that was them going into open world.
Yeah.
Now you can't go into open world anymore. Maybe Liza P kind of shows you what it's what's nice about a closed world.
Yeah,
Bit.
absolutely. No, this is a tighter experience than most of this. It's tighter and more bloated.
And I love Elden Ring.
Absolutely. But this is like, no, this game is both streamlined and content full. Like it is. I did not think it was too short. I did not think it was light on content. In fact, it has more bosses in areas than Bloodborne. It has more bosses in areas than standard DS1 or DS3. It is a huge game. However, we haven't seen DLC. They announced there is going to be DLC for this game. But I do think that it just has a higher quality. I think it doesn't take as many risks as From Software games often do. Like there's not a lot of like crazy risks, but there's just enough that makes this game different. The weapon crafting system is different. It's something new. They step out just like it's not a total clone of Dark Souls or Bloodborne. You could say this is Liza P. Liza P is like a Bloodborne clone, but not really, not really at all.
No,
like
I don't think it's
I think that there's a lot of Sekiro in this game too. I think that the amount of deflecting,
Sekiro.
Yeah, the amount of deflecting this game asks you to do is not as much as it asks you to do in Sekiro, but it's not far from it. It's asking a lot, and it's asking to combine that with the dodging of Bloodborne. But I think
that's my argument is like, does this kind of expose Elden Ring as being like, all you did was make Dark Souls E3, but in an open world?
No. Elden Ring is on a fucking another level. Elden Ring is insane. I don't think there'll ever be a game as ambitious as Elden Ring.
Okay.
I think I personally, I don't think From has anything to prove or any. I think
I'm not asking him to prove anything. I'm just saying, like, I think Elden Ring's great.
Let me say this. I think that I hope you're right. I hope that they see Lies of P and his popularity and say, you know what? They think that they can make a tighter crafted one of these. Like I think what's also cool about this game in that same vein is it's not the medieval fantasy. This is in a Victorian England setting. There's guns. There's it's a different setting, and I think that's the thing that is super refreshing about Sekiro and Bloodborne. Dark Souls, for as amazing as DS1, 2, and 3 and Elden Ring are, it is your relatively typical fantasy setting: knights, dragons, zombies. It's all of that stuff. Undead. This game, while it does use some of that stuff, it is, you don't, there's the mad clown puppet. It's just, it does something that's a little different, which like this guy's attacking with a candlestick. I just think that, in my opinion, I hope that FromSoft does get inspired the way that the Beach Boys were inspired by the Beatles, who were inspired by the Beach Boys.
You're also talking about like a massive studio versus whatever the fuck studio made this game.
Another big Korean studio. I will just say, two Korean games in my top 3. I don't know if I've even played a Korean game prior to this. And suddenly Dave the Diver and Liza P Korea doing some stuff, man.
You moved out of K-Town, but it stayed with you.
No, I mean, I hope you're right. I hope this does inspire them to do it. I just think in the end, this is a tighter, streamlined experience of what FromSoft has already done. And outside of some weapon crafting stuff and a setting change, like, I don't think that there's anything in this game that is making FromSoft reevaluate anything.
No, I don't think it's a reevaluation. I just feel like there's things that this game does that makes other existing FromSoft systems better.
Yeah,
like, that's
sure.
what this is.
Yeah.
This is like a re-examining of, hey, you make the games like this, and here's how you could do it in a little bit of a better way.
Yeah, like FromSoft really could have used the magic cube and the gold coin tree. And just kidding.
No,
I'm just kidding.
Not the lame shit. Throw that out. But like the idea of, like, instead of having to use a grindstone, it's like, yeah, you can just reuse that every other time.
I actually liked
how to use it.
I liked the durability mechanic.
Good shit in here.
Yeah, I think that
I love the durability mechanic. I think this game's sick.
It sounds annoying on paper that you have to repair your weapon on the fly, but it's quick, and the idea that it is another element of strategy. Like, do you wait?
Great.
Do you spend your free moment to heal, or do you spend that same moment to repair your durability? And that's something you have to think about. And I do think it's not cumbersome enough where it's that much of a problem. Having the grindstone on your elbow is an awesome idea.
And I think the Sekiro combat mechanic of perfect parries, and then how that affects, like, the health of the other guy. Like, there's just so much here that I think that hopefully shows up in the future FromSoft games.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a FromSoft guy,
obviously,
but I just feel like there's just so much this game did well.
Yeah.
And I'm watching you're like fighting on here. That's why I'm like talking like a moron.
No, it's all good. The distracting gameplay footage.
I think that's what the Sekiro like blocking device does. It forces you to watch. You block, you watch, you block, you watch. Suddenly you learn the momentum of what the guy you're fighting is doing, and then you know when to attack him.
Yeah,
I think that's what this game does really fucking
yes. And I know that people have complained about the parry window being not forgiving, and there could be some valid stuff there, but I don't know.
No, there's no validity there. You're dumb. I think.
If I can make it through this game, I'm not that good. I play a lot of video games, but I wouldn't say I'm like particularly skilled. If I can make it through this game, most people can. I
don't think this game's that hard in that way.
I think it is pretty fucking hard, but yeah.
This game's that hard,
bro. This boss fight that we're watching, I beat it on.
This fight sucks.
I beat it on my like 30 attempts, man. Yeah, like so. And I wouldn't even say afterwards, is that boss that hard? I probably would leave saying, oh, it wasn't that bad, but at the same time, 30 attempts is not nothing, man. Like
everybody watched me fight the scrapped Watchman 100 times.
The funny thing is, I watched you fight the scrapped Watchman so many times that I beat it in like 4 tries, because I basically studied its moves while watching you play, and then I was able to blast through. And my controller was like shaking when I beat it. I couldn't believe, because I knew how you were banging your head against it. All of the what are they called? The hunters, whatever they're called. The survivors, the cultists, whatever, the humanoid enemies. I think I beat all of them on my first try. Outside of that, I don't think any boss I beat on the first try. In Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, lots of bosses I beat on my first try. So I would say this game is significantly harder than every Dark Souls game, I would say. I would say it's easier in the sense that I think Dark Souls demands some more obscure shit for you to figure out. Like, I think figuring out navigating some of that world in Dark Souls and Dark Souls 3, I think requires a bit more weird thinking. But I think in terms of pure combat, this game is hard, and it's really fun and really satisfying and awesome. And I'm not saying hard as an insult. This game is hard. This game is really hard. And I'd say it's not as hard as the DLC for DS3. DS3 DLC is on like another level. But
DLC for DS3, I have never really gone back.
Yeah, and I haven't even finished it. So I beat all the main game bosses except shit, man, those DLC bosses. Anyway, the point is, I do think that this game is hard, and I think that at the same time, if I can beat it, I think most people can.
I also just feel like if we want to talk about quality of life shit, I felt like putting different armaments on my guy, like all the stuff that is consumable in the Dark Souls universe, you don't have to consume here. It's like, all right,
the
attack, like
the
like
special grindstones and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like that made fighting some of the later bosses more fun because you were more thinking about like, all right, what's the best way to attack this guy or whatever.
Yeah, okay. Totally. I mean, like, and it's crazy because like looking at this list, it's in there could be a little bit of recency bias because it's one of the games I beat more recently. At the same time, all of this is just to bide time to play Liza P again. Like, Are you that? Yeah, man, I'm ready to go in and do a different build. At the same time, I'm guessing it's going to be like my second playthrough of Resident Evil 4 Remake or anything else where I'm going to play like the first quarter of the game and be like, okay, well, I can't do this soon. That's why I think I have to wait. Like I powered through this amount of DS1 again because it had been long enough since I'd played it where I'm like, okay, like I'm almost at that point with the main game of DS3 again as well. I need to give these games some time before I just launch back into it. You know what I mean?
I just want everybody out there to appreciate the fact that we've got lists here of like 20, 30, 40 games. And it's like these 7 games buzzing around your head. Like, geez. Want a little bit
and I consume so much YouTube videos about all these games, and I watch so many challenge runs for all these games. I spent last week watching several different Sekiro world record speed runs. I'm like, what am I doing?
Just living life, dog.
Dude.
You're just relaxing. Anyway,
yeah,
game of the year.
Yeah, it's a game of the year. It's a great game. I loved it. And here's the thing: it was on Game Pass. I didn't even pay for it. That's crazy. I would have.
That's actually a huge piece of this. Yeah.
I think I would have played it eventually, but what Game Pass did is it allowed me to try it before even hearing the word of mouth on it, which was awesome.
I think I came back from Japan or wherever I was, and you were like, "Bro, have you seen this yet?"
Mm-hmm.
You were actually the first person who said, like, Liza P, dude, it's kind of like a Soulsborne game.
I know, considering you're the one who got me into the Souls series at all. Look at me. I could finally return the favor a little bit.
No, it was great. And I was, I mean, I honestly, gaming these days, I'm like, it takes me a second to dip my toes in, but you're right. You were right with this one.
And I think we'll revisit Liza P on a future stream because I think it would be fun to do a boss tier list. Because that was fun to do for Bloodborne, and I think we should do that for Liza P. I think we could talk about it some more. Wow, Liza P, great game of the year. I knew you were going to be surprised because I knew you were there toward the end when I was experiencing a lot of salt, and I knew I just needed the dust to settle.
Honestly, that's one of my favorite things, dude. I love hearing when you're frustrated, but when you make it through. All right, do you want to know my top 5 games?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, we never did this. Okay, let's go over. So Cal's game of the year.
We don't have to fuck around. Liza P was number 1.
My guess was Liza P.
Number 2 is Dave the Diver.
Dave the Diver. Hell yeah. Shout out.
I think this was the perfect... Kirk
I guess 3.
Dangled this one for me. He was like, hey, you might like this. It was a fucking bomb-ass game. Yeah, loved it.
Game's sick.
Number 3 was Baldur's Gate 3.
So I just had those mixed up. I think, right?
Which is a great game.
I think I said, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then I said Super Mario Wonder and Lethal Company, but I don't know if that's going to be true for you.
Well, then I put Lethal Company next and Mario Wonder.
Okay, so I had the top 5, but just in the wrong order.
Yeah, you were right.
I mean, you weren't going to put Starfield on there, and somehow I didn't think BattleBit was going to make it either.
BattleBit was fun. Mario Wonder, I don't know. I might have like a fucking age thing with me. Would I like this more if I was 12?
Of course. Yeah, everything's fucking... All these games would be better when you're 12.
I wish I was younger. I just wish I was a little younger.
Do you know what game would be sick when you're 12? Lethal Company. Do you know what's sick when you're 12? Fucking Dave the Diver. No, all these games.
Lethal Company that's one of the special ones.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be. I think we're just getting the beginning of that. I think it's gonna be interesting, and I'll be curious to see what they add to it. It's been a fucking crazy year for games. I mean, let's just one more time. I'm just going to put up the list of games. We did our top things. I'm glad
I appreciate you having me, dude.
No, dude, it's been so fun, and I'm glad you agreed to do this because it's so fun to hash this stuff out. You're good at stirring the pot and having good questions, especially like we were trying to figure out how to do this because I played a considerable amount more games, but like at the same time, you played like your top 5 here is in my top 7. Like you played the heavy hitters. Like we still had a lot of common ground on the big stuff, the important stuff. And then some of the rest of this stuff was me either pitching it to you and failing or pitching it to you and giving you some intrigue. And like, if I was to just close this off with one sentiment, I will just do one quick reframing of here's my game of the year list finalized. I just want to emphasize the games that I do think you might like and check out. I think some of them are obvious.
For me,
this is for Cal specifically.
Cal's moment.
In the end, some of these are very obvious. Resident Evil 4 is a slam dunk home run.
Will play it.
Automatic. Like this might have been your number 1 if you played it. I think Metroid Prime Remastered you should absolutely fucking check out. I think this game fucking rules.
Yeah.
I think you would actually like Super Mario RPG Remake as well. I think eventually when it's on sale and not for PC,
Pikmin
you should
4.
play Star Wars Jedi Survivor. Absolutely.
Oh, dude, that's on my list too.
Yeah, you would love it. I mean, it's an improvement over the first one in almost every way, outside of a few special rant-worthy areas.
4?
Street Fighter 6, when it's $9 on sale sometime next year, scoop it.
Honestly, there's nothing attractive to
then maybe not.
Street Fighter 6.
Sorry. I think you didn't seem interested at all, but I think Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is up your alley too.
I think I might be maybe that's a hands-on.
Yeah, I think it's a feel. It's a flow state thing. It's a feel, and
it looks good.
And I think if you are at all into fast-paced boomer shooters, which I'm not sure you are, but if you are, Turbo Overkill is very fun. But I think
System Shock seemed interesting.
System Shock is interesting, and I think it's really cool. I would recommend it as well when it's on sale. It does,
it
demands a lot. Like it doesn't tell you what to do or where to go, and so it does have that kind of soulsy kind of feeling of like, hey, you got to figure this shit out, man. You might have to read some logs. And here's the thing: I didn't even play Marvel's Spider-Man 2 this year, man.
Honestly, I literally, while we were going, I Googled like best games of 2023. Marvel Spider-Man was like
Did you play the first one?
No. Nothing about it attracts me. I don't know. Maybe.
It's the first. It's cool, but it's just not for me. The brawler style combat, the Arkham City / Spider-Man / that kind of combat is just not. I don't like it. It
looks kind of fine.
The cool thing about Spider-Man and it was supposedly amazing in Spider-Man 2 is traveling around and finding collectibles. I would do that all day. I would do the Spider-Man swing through the city and find the hidden backpacks. That's what I would do because that's all I did in the first one.
Really good. Like you take a bong rip and you just float.
Yeah, it's like I'd play like Tony Hawk and then I'd realize I should just be playing Tony Hawk.
New question for you. Alan Wake 2.
I want to play Alan Wake 2. I liked Control a lot, and this is their kind of follow-up to that. Obviously, it's a follow-up to Alan Wake, but I've heard very good things. I didn't even mention Hitman, the new mode in Hitman, which I've been playing a lot lately. Freelancer mode. It is so cool. It is, but honestly, it's just a remix of, I can't in good faith put it on this list because it's not a new game. It's just remixing. It's an awesome new mode for an amazing game. And so that's why I can't really put it on here. But if you're just like, here's a list of the games, let's just pretend Hitman, all 3 games came out this year.
No, just
Hitman would be number 1 for sure.
You think Hitman is better than Lies of P?
Yes.
Dude, I'm excited.
Yeah.
2024, baby. Let's go.
And they're different. It's apples and oranges again, but dude, Hitman,
I just
so good.
love how much you love Hitman.
I'm excited about your love of it, man.
Yeah, I think it's the way that other people love like Metal Gear. Like, this is my shit.
I don't get it, but I like watching it.
Yeah.
I want to watch you play more Hitman.
Well, dude, we'll see what the next KL stream,
baby.
2024.
Let's go.
Cal, thanks for hanging out, dude.
boys.
This has been great.
Shout out to you, first of all, Kirk, for playing all these games, creating
For
the
gaming.
concepts. No, but it's been fun. It's been fun to get your actual opinion and your like, you know, I mean, you're a guy who plays a lot of games, and to distill out what you liked and what you didn't like about him was great. So
I appreciate that.
I know you care, and I appreciate that.
I really appreciate you doing this, and another year of gaming. Just can't wait to see what's next. Take it easy, everyone. And on that note, we're gonna do my little outro here. Peace out. Catch you later.